listening to the Otasso Outdoors Podcast.
Do, 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 do.
Hunter's not here.
Do, 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 do.
I have a new rule.
Do, do, do.
My new rule is I have to do it when one of the other guests are missing.
Like when Hunter's gone?
Yeah, when Hunter's gone. Well, I did it. I've done it twice when you were gone.
Really?
Yep.
I'm so proud of you.
That just means you don't listen to our episodes, or else you'd hear
They
me
haven't
say,
released yet.
"Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
My bad."
I move that you need 2 do-to-dos. Motion carries.
There are, and I did them,
Good. Thank you.
guys. What's up? Welcome back to the Otasso Outdoors Podcast. I'm Caleb. I'm your host. If you are tuning in for the first time, there are 3 segments to the show. Segment number 1 is What You Got, Buddy? That is where we bring headlines, pre-prepared articles, and we discuss them at length. They can be as short as 30 minutes and as long as 2 hours, depending on the level of attention deficit disorder in the PodBunker. Segment number 2.
Segment number 2 is our Spotlight series, where we go and search our network of people in the outdoors industry. We seek them out, bring them to the PodBunker. If they're special enough, we'll go to them. And we bring you guys along for the conversation of getting to know who they are, what they do, and what makes them impactful in the outdoors industry. Segment number 3?
Segment number 3 is our head-to-head. That is our trivia/game show, where the games are, bring pre-prepared questions, and the members of the PodBunker battle it out to test their strength and knowledge of the outdoors. You clicked on it, so you know what it is. He had so much fun on our first ever Zoom call podcast that he jumped in the truck and huffed it all the way down here. We have him in the flesh. He's live here in the PodBunker. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Conner Gough with Great Lakes Guided Outdoors.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
In person.
Now, I want to preface one thing. In my opening statement, I said if they're special enough, we'll go to them. Technically, with the Zoom call, we went to you first, and then you came to us the second time. We would go see you. It's just happened to work out.
It would just be tough because we'd be chasing him all around the country.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's good, because I was just starting to feel a little desperate that I had to drive all the way down here. So you definitely made me feel better about myself. Now I feel special.
Yeah, didn't mean to throw you under the bus like that. But where were you just coming from? What state were you in?
So the last time we chatted, I was in Oklahoma, and so we just wrapped up down there. I think our last day was right around the last day of January 29th, maybe, or somewhere in that time frame. So a little over a week ago, right in there. Just finished up waterfowl season and packed up camp, cleaned everything up, and it was muddy. It was nasty.
Saw some videos of that. Oh. Got the truck stuck and the trailer stuck.
Not me, not I. But there were a lot of things stuck for sure. A lot of things stuck, a lot of things broken, a lot of things covered in mud. It is a different world. It's almost like a different planet out there, just a different type of mud that is slimy and nasty.
Do you normally encounter that this time of year because of it's so far south that this, like the end of waterfowl season is usually when everything is melting, any snow that's down there?
Typically, it's not that bad. You know, there may be a day here or there that it rains or you got some melt, like you're saying, and it's, you know, slimy, nasty mud. But this was like 3-4 weeks straight of just misery, you know, mud, rain consistently, and just never saw the sun or wind or anything to dry it out for a while. So it was less than ideal, but we made the best of it.
That's brutal. All right. So being in the PodBunker for the first time, what are your impressions?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely got here, and I thought it was like in the basement of the house or something, you know, and just following you guys in aimlessly. And you're like, oh, it's actually not in the house, it's out here. So I follow out that way, and he's like, here it is. I'm like, wow, it's actually very, very cool.
It's our little hobbit hole.
Yeah, you can get a little bit of a taste with the camera, but actually being here, you know, just, you know, the old, you know, dark, clammy bunker feel.
We call it casino time because you really have no sense of time.
Yeah,
it could be midnight right now. It could be
No
10
idea.
a.m. and you have no clue. It's the place for good conversations, and that's the goal. So, with that being said, tonight is about you. We want to know everything. So, Conner Gough, who the heck are you?
Man, open question. Definitely major focus on the outdoors. I spend so many days a year either in the woods, a field, or on the water that I'm not real good at being inside. It's always cool to network and be in a place like this to, like you said, create conversation. And it's a different feel than what I would have, in the boat or in the blind. But a lot of time spent outdoors enjoying God's great creation and the critters that frolic the earth. You get to see lots of cool things in that regard at all hours of the day because, they're long days and I'm not real good at sleep anyway. So I'm out a lot of times at night too, chasing critters as well. But definitely spend a lot of time outside and with some really good people. So conversation is something that I've learned to really, really appreciate, especially in today's society. There's not very many people that like to talk to each other or interact.
I like that. Exactly. That was half the reason I'm like, man, we got to get this guy in person because we realized over the years it's just our phones are the ball and chain of society and everything it's convenient. Don't get me wrong. The way information travels, we do this. We blast all this out on social media. It's a great way to get information and educate people, but there is something to be said about just taking a step back and just having conversation. And so that's why we love doing it in person.
Yeah, and I think, like you said and touched on, technology is a double-edged sword. It really enables us to, reach new people that you may have never been able to meet if you were just reliant on meeting in person. So you're able to grow your network substantially from connecting with this person. And now, I meet you guys and next thing you know, I'm connected to different people and so on and so forth. That's an awesome thing. But all of a sudden, people live with it in their face time and time again, all day long at all hours of the day. And it's replaced this face-to-face contact to the point where people actually forget how to interact with each other. And so in that regard, technology is sad. And you can see the gap, what's the exact age number? It's hard to say, but 35, 50, somewhere in there where, they didn't ever have technology like to the scale that we do when they were growing up or going to school. And now kind of my generation or our generation is the first to have really grown up with it to some degree, really almost all the way through school or through the point that kids start to have phones anyway.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a disconnect now that you still need to interact with people and be polite. And it's sad to see people that forget that importance.
I'd be willing to bet, and this is not tooting our own horn, but I think our generation, like the late millennial, early Gen Z, anyone that was born pre 97 or 90.
You're just trying to include me. You don't have to.
No. I'm including you because so anybody who didn't have that technology pre-middle school.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I grew up on both sides of it. The first cell phone I had, I was when I was 15 or 16.
Yep, 16, me too.
And it slid open and it had a keyboard on it. I was able to send
grainy pictures.
Yes, grainy pictures.
Yeah.
8 text messages a month is all I was allowed to send. So it was just super basic. By the time I got an iPad or we had one computer. It was in the kitchen. You could play computer games, but that was it. Maybe an Xbox here and there. But if I think about kids that were born pre-2000 or right around 2000 and later, they don't know life without it. So I think that's where when we were all kids, it wasn't a thing. You had a TV in the house, yes, you had video games and stuff, but it wasn't. We didn't have iPads, we didn't have Kindles, we didn't have iPhones. You didn't constantly have a screen in front of your face. You still went outside and played. You still went out and had a bow and arrow and shot at squirrels and rabbits and built forts and cut down trees and that's what our generation grew up with. And I think that's why we have a severe advantage over some other generations because we see the benefits of it, but we also see the danger of it.
Sure.
I remember when Nickelodeon was cutting edge technology because their VHS tapes were orange. Remember how sweet that was?
When you'd go down to Blockbuster.
Oh, dude, and you had to
Or
roll the thing back at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like always the biggest inconvenience when you were a kid, having to sit there and wait for the whole movie to play in reverse and like warp speed.
Oh, didn't you have one of those high-tech VHS machines that rewound in like super speed?
No.
I did.
No.
It rewound in like 30 seconds.
I mean, like you put it into the TV and but like you'd watch the whole movie in reverse.
Oh, ours didn't do that. Ours
Oh, it
went
was
black and it
wild.
sounded like a turbo spooling up. It just, and then then you were ready to watch it. Okay. Growing up, what was your family's involvement in the outdoors? Are you first generation, fifth generation? What did that look like for you guys?
So definitely not first generation by any means. Hunting and that outdoor heritage has been something that's been in my family's blood for a long, long time. They were homestead type people that built houses out on the land, in northern Michigan a long time ago. I mean, I don't know the exact year, but 1800s, early 1900s, and somewhat with that homestead, with livestock and the whole 9 yards. Not a Walmart, obviously, right down the street corner or Walgreens or any of that stuff to just go get groceries all the time. So, at that point, a lot of your hunting is for survival. So we're going to kind of backtrack on our last conversation of, deer management. Deer management wasn't really a thing. It was meat management in the freezer, right?
Yeah.
Survival.
So that's back, 3, 4, 5 generations of history there, especially on my mom's side, up that way in northern Michigan. And then like my great grandpa, I'm going to give a little bit of a teaser. I haven't talked about this with anybody yet. We're about to do a new segment on some of my great grandparents' history and my grandparents' history, involvement in the hunting community and kind of how that is passed down through generations. Obviously, to me at this point, being the youngest generation now, and my siblings and cousins at this level. But my great grandpa actually shot the first legally recorded turkey in our county.
Really?
The first season they had
where you could actually buy a tag.
Correct. 1969.
Wow. Great year.
I have, yeah.
Go Gramps.
I have the newspaper clipping and then a few Polaroid pictures.
No.
Let's go.
Yeah, with the date and a little bit about it. So that's kind of cool to actually have something physical that you can look at and have that memory. Not that, word of mouth stories shared with grandma, that's still alive. She's 87, aren't still good. That's awesome and irreplaceable, but it's even better to be able to see a picture like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something kind of moving down the pipeline that you'll see more of. So definitely stay tuned for that.
That's super cool.
But my grandma and my grandpa actually met at deer camp. She was the cook or the chef at the hunting camp that my grandpa came up to. And my grandma's the most stubborn lady, love her to death, but most stubborn lady in the history of ever. And so she was, independent woman, not, I don't need no man kind of thing of today's society. She had that mindset for whatever reason. I don't know what caused her to think that way, but there's some setup behind the scenes that she ended up having to shuttle my grandpa out to his deer stand. And it was like, they kind of got set up that way, and then next thing you know, it spun
She's in the deer stand.
Yeah.
There you go.
I didn't ask any more details than that.
No.
That's right. And la, I'm not listening. But either way, they met actually at deer camp, which, as Michiganders, right? Like that is the testament of outdoor heritage, right? Like I grew up in hunting camp. I know you guys obviously hunt a lot and have your hunting stories that you share around the campfire or in camp. Those are memories that, again, are irreplaceable to me, that not everybody gets that opportunity to make. So it's kind of cool that generation of history happened and started right there, right? Like, what if they wouldn't have ever met? I probably wouldn't be here, in this regard. So that happened. And then obviously my grandpa was already a deer hunter. And so he continued to pass that trait on down to us. He unfortunately passed away when I was 3 or 4. So I never really got to experience the outdoors. And so my grandma all the time, she says, it's a good thing your grandpa and great grandpa aren't around or you guys would be in so much trouble, yada, yada, yada. And it's just funny to hear her cut up about that. But, it's passed on from not only that, but my grandma's side was the one that actually settled up there. Like I was mentioned, 3, 4, 5 generations back. So obviously her side of the family was deep rooted into trapping and hunting and at that point, like I said, for survival. And so then obviously my mom has had lots of history hunting, and she's actually the one that really taught me a lot of my outdoor passion and knowledge and stuff in the outdoors there through, like you already mentioned, kind of instead of, being on a tablet or a phone or any of that, it was, what do you want at the grocery store this week? Oh, let's get whatever. I think it was called a brick, at that point, or block, 22 ammo, the 550 bullets. We'd just tack that on every week at the grocery store, and we'd shoot through them all, every week. And so it was like, instead of playing video games, we were outside shooting squirrels and pop cans and all that stuff. So, again, in a safe and ethical manner. But that's really how we spent our life growing up as kids. Any free time we had, we were out crow hunting or squirrel hunting or playing with critters in the creek. And so it was just cool. And I'm very appreciative, right, that was passed down to me at a young age, to where I didn't really realize the significance of it then, right? But, I was very fortunate to have that in my upbringing, and look at the critter that it's created, man.
Yeah, it is cool to see multiple generations like creating that. So, Reed's got a question.
I was just thinking back when you're talking about like going up to deer camp and the camaraderie and what that produced, over the years, especially with that technological aspect of it, where it's okay, we have a hunting community that we roll deep with. You got all your buddies, they're all over the state, they're all over the nation. They're like, in your community, we're meeting up every week and we're shooting together. But when it comes down to actually going out in the woods, hunting is really turned into like an individualistic sport, where it's like, yep, me and my buddy, other than, okay, so like that's deer hunting.
Sure.
Maybe you go out with a friend if he's going to film, or if you're just going to go out and sit with him.
Well, you ain't that straight. Carry on. I'm sorry.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, you got a bunch of buddies that you hunt with, but when it comes time to going out in the woods with your bow, you're going by yourself. And it's become a very solitary thing over the years. But I do remember going up as a younger kid with Gramps to deer camp. And we'd go up to Pigeon River State Forest, and we'd go deep back in the woods, and you meet up with all your buddies that you'd see once a year at that spot. And you'd go out and you'd go out on your individual hunts. But at the end of the night, you'd come back and you're all just like yucking it up, having a great time, eating meat that you shot that day. And I feel like hunting has lost that is like the root of Michigan hunting, that we don't get that nearly as much anymore. Now you see it more with the waterfowl people, because it's like, it's a team sport through and through. You don't see very many people going out and like single-handedly picking off ducks. It's like, hey, the more the merrier. Let's get a big set out, and like, you all bring your decoys, everybody bring their blinds. The more people we can get, the more birds we can get. So it's a bigger thing. But with especially bow hunting, it's like we're trying to be as stealth and solitary as possible. And I think we miss out on a lot of that camaraderie that comes from it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, obviously that's where I think there are two major sides to that, where, like you said, deer hunting, it's not real beneficial to have 15 people in one tree. That's a lot of scent going on, a lot of noise. Yep. And like you said, you're not shooting any more deer, probably shooting less deer.
Yep.
But on that same note, when I find myself in the woods by myself, which ends up being a lot less frequently than the opposite side with a bunch of people, which I'm out with a bunch of people every day just about, I find it so much easier to just appreciate the atmosphere. And
well, you're not at work.
Yeah, exactly. Not even just the work portion, but it's so relaxing for me to be able to just take it all in. And at that point, the harvest, there's no pressure, there's no, anything associated with that it's just very, very chill to take in the little things, the little critters you see, or just a beautiful sunset or sunrise or whatever that is. So there is two sides to it, where you might miss out on a little bit of camaraderie with other people, but there's still a lot of memories to be made that can be appreciated by yourself too.
Correct.
I think deer hunting is intentionally a singles sport, because a lot of people use it as solitude.
Sure.
That's where a lot of dudes spend their time thinking and praying and just contemplating life. Like, think about the amount of killer ideas you've come up with, or just things that you've thought while sitting in a deer stand.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I just think hunting has traditionally always been a team atmosphere. You know, all the men would gather together and they'd go off and like, you know, back then they were maybe doing like a woolly mammoth drive or whatever. But it's like you all went together and there was supposed to be camaraderie around this activity. And like there still is. It's just it's become disseminated within our culture, like, or it's becoming like dispersed where it's like, hey, we're not all going out after this one thing and like sharing and partaking. The sharing and partaking happens when maybe we come back around and we eat the back straps from something, or we help process the deer, or, you know, we're sending pictures out in the group chats. It's like, that's where some of the camaraderie comes from. But even then, a lot of that still happens in solitude because a lot of it's happening over technology or, you know, one-off events where it's like, hey, I'm not going out and sitting in the stand with you. And we're not having that opportunity to bond. It's like, dude, I've taken my girlfriend on plenty of dates sitting in a tree stand. And it's like, it's just you guys out there, and it's like there's just a good time of like camaraderie, bonding, talking, like figuring life out, setting plans and goals. And it's like you're doing it in a setting where you're appreciating everything around you. And then you're like,
oh yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, it's just like there's a bond that happens when you're out in the woods with somebody, and like you have this common goal of like, oh, the deer are coming. Okay, like we're both on the same page now. We both know what we're doing. And it's like, I think we miss that when you go out on your own, you know, but deer camp really did do that. Like, I remember just coming back and man, dude, you'd laugh for hours by the campfire.
Till your belly hurts.
Oh,
your cheeks hurt.
It was awesome. And like, you know, we have a lot of fun here, but it's like, I'm just now realizing like, I haven't had that in years.
Total Archery Challenge is our deer camp.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now that we've stepped out of the FUD category and into the elitist category.
Elitist. We are the 1%.
And I could say still, I mean, it may be hard, like you said, to keep everybody together over the, you know, span of years, right? Like how long ago is it that you were up, you know, that far north, you know, growing up, you know, 10 years ago, maybe 5, I don't know, 15, either way, a while ago. People's lives change, you know, and you have to adjust to your free time. And sometimes it's easier to get places and sometimes it's harder. But I know, you know, I'm fortunate that the places that I've grown up in deer camp, they are still functioning. And I know darn well November 14th every year, there's going to be a steak cookout over the fire, you know, not over a grill, over a fire at deer camp every single year, whether I'm there or not, it's going on. So that's a cool thing that there's that much history still in a lot of deer camp. So, but a lot of places too, I mean, they'll welcome you in with open arms. It's a big family atmosphere, you know, you might not sit in the best stand, but there's typically opportunity places if you network a little bit, you know.
Yeah, that and Caleb and I are both skip generation hunters.
Sure.
Like our dads didn't hunt.
Sure.
And your grandpa hunted, correct?
No.
Oh, so you're like twice removed.
At least on my dad's side, I'm first generation for sure. On mom's side, there were some of my, if I'm being honest, on my mom's side, there's 3 biological and 3 through another marriage, and they were all girls. And some of their husbands hunted, so some of my uncles on that side did. But outside of that, I'd really consider myself first generation.
Really pioneer, yeah.
So I never experienced a deer camp.
I think for us though, like it's almost a poor excuse to say the opportunity's not there with, you know, going back to the technology that we have, right? Like how easy would it be to start a chain, you know, and
easy.
Obviously you want it to be people that are likable, right? That you're going to have similar values and enjoy your time outside, which outside it is easier to set some differing views aside and still enjoy the atmosphere together. But I think it's pretty easy to network to build that, right? Like you're like, hey, you know, let's either go Airbnb a cabin somewhere now every year in this certain area where there's a bunch of public land you could go hunt, or you know, get a lease somewhere or whatever. It could be as easy or complex as you want to make it, but I think that it's definitely still very achievable with as easy as to network anymore.
That's true.
Yeah.
Just got to make sure you're not killing small deer. Either that or does only.
Does only. Freezer
queens. All right. So tell us about, I know we touched on this a little bit on the last podcast. I want to know a little bit more about Great Lakes Guided Outdoors. I want to know, let's start to where it started first and foremost, and what drew you to waterfowl opposed to deer.
Well, I mean, starting from scratch at the very bottom, you know, we don't really have a real marketable deer atmosphere here, for people to want to travel to Michigan and deer hunt at this point.
For our DNR officer listening, we need to fix this. You heard him.
And on that note, I did see about 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a thing going around to say, hey, email in if you feel like you can contribute to this new DNR, protocol for deer management. And I sent an email and did not hear back. So I'll have to ping that again, make sure it gets back up to the top so we can at least have a conversation, because I'd love to be able to tap in and at least cut up a little bit about that. But right now, not that everything needs to be monetized, but whether it's guiding or just hunting, it doesn't really matter at this point. I think that it's a difficult thing to grow big deer here with what the regulations are, with the culture. I mean, the culture is the biggest thing.
Culture's huge.
Even bigger than the management side of things from the DNR standpoint. It's up to us pulling the trigger of how that's going to go down. But either way, we got a lot of deer that need to be shot, just not a lot of 2-year-olds that need to be shot. So that said, there's not many people that want to drive to Michigan to help us thin our doe herd out a little bit. So that, again, is going to be on us. So fill the freezer up, feed a hungry family, find a new hunter or a youth hunter that's never shot a doe and let them crack away. So that's kind of why I shied away from the deer hunting. And honestly, I had never been on a guided hunt growing up. I never traveled to hunt really growing up. It was just, go to deer camp, a little bit of waterfowl hunting here and there in the community. And then once I started driving, I definitely, that skyrocketed my internal drive for wanting to waterfowl hunt and deer hunt as well. And then I was driving to properties and hanging stands and doing food plots and trail cams and scouting a lot more for waterfowl and, kind of stretching my wings, and being able to go to some new areas. And so once I got into waterfowl hunting, it just snowball effect exploded, and so then you start meeting new people in other cities. And I wasn't real big on social media at the time, obviously, whatever, that would have been, sophomore year of high school. So, I mean, it was kind of just right in my clique of people that I knew and network a little bit, but the opportunities that I have now definitely weren't there then, that to my knowledge. So smaller scale than what's going on now. So then kind of as I, again, traveled, start going to college, I went to Adrian College in southern part of Michigan, down towards the Ohio border, and, meet new people, network a little bit. Getting permission was a lot harder down there. So I definitely was able to meet some people that was real helpful and them, taking me to new properties or whatever. And when you say, like, I thought earlier it was funny when you said, oh yeah, everybody brings their decoys and hunts together and blinds and yada, yada, yada. And there's a lot of guys that do hunt together, but I think the waterfowl community is like very cliquey, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
So it's like,
by that, I mean, it's like you and your buddies,
yes.
Not like you and your buddies and those guys over there.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we're in this field, go find another one.
Yeah. And in a perfect world, you would say that, like, hey, this guy's had permission here for a long time. He invited all these people. Like, you give him the respect that he invited you here, and trust that they're not going to just come back and take that from you. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So that's something that I think as, humans, we need to be better about respecting the people, respecting the invite and that gesture so that, maybe there is more networking that goes on, or there is more inviting different places. And at that point, kind of what goes around comes around. You're going to get to see more things and experience more things and meet more people. So if you're good to people, karma will keep you on that train. But to get back on track with why I ended up waterfowl hunting, like I said, just the snowball effect. I now was waterfowl hunting in, 8 or 10 different counties within Michigan instead of 2 or 3, right, surrounding area where I grew up. So now, you're getting exposure to a little bit different hunting styles, maybe, or different environment. And then obviously at this point, I started being exposed to some outfitting opportunities and started working with some guys that had been guiding for over a decade. And so now my eyes are kind of open. Like, I didn't even know this was a thing until now I'm at college and see, like, oh, hey, like, there's more to the world than, going to school Monday through Friday and then doing homework on Saturday and Sunday and working your part-time job and hunting a little bit when you can. And I'm like, whoa, like, this is really cool. However, you don't really realize how hard and how much of an uphill climb it's going to be to actually turn that into your career or job and not only pay the bills, but build something that, is successful. the world is not a kind place as far as prices of things, and that only continues to rise. So it's like you do need to be smart about that. Hunting equipment, obviously, as we all know, is very expensive, and just the sheer time investment that it takes to be consistently successful, amount of miles you have to drive and efforts you have to go to, it's a lot. So you can't tackle it all at one time. Rome wasn't built in a day, right? But definitely, once the foot started hitting the gas in that department, it was a little bit easier to keep getting up out of bed at 3:30 in the morning and working those long days and growing in that regard.
How did you build clientele early on? Like, where did you start finding like, hey, I can actually make money off of this?
So again, like I didn't have any business smarts. I will freely admit it. I had never had any history in business. I didn't really know any, major business people or understand the back end of their business. Like, sure, people that, they owned this business, XYZ, or did this or whatever. But
you're telling me they didn't teach you that at college?
Well, I did get a degree in biology, not business, but I will say the people that studied business, I don't think that, necessarily it's exactly everything you need to know to run a business either. I'm sure there's useful knowledge that maybe would have been better than biology.
I mean, no, you got to know where to shoot the bird.
Yeah.
Biology's good.
Yeah. Right. That's true. So
vitals.
So then as far as getting clientele, like I still remember this. I mean, it's, I don't know, I guess eight years back now at this point of starting, getting my feet wet and guiding and outfitting. I saw these guys that in my mind looked like they were quote unquote successful guides or outfitters that had been doing it for longer than 1 or 2 years or longer than 5 or 10 years, and I would just be like, hey, I just kind of thought they'd start pushing people to hunt with me, like it was no big deal. But in their defense, I just didn't have the background or the experience level, right? So like it is up to me to now network and show people, the value that I can provide to them with either the properties that you have or the experience you have hunting those properties for turkeys or geese or deer or whatever it is. But it is definitely a major uphill climb of actually, networking, getting people to trust you. And so, the initial part of it, you tend to have to charge less money, to work your way up, I guess, that ladder. But it's just a lot of time. I guess time and effort and energy is really the only way that you're going to be able to do that. And getting face-to-face exposure with people, whether it be trade shows or other events like that where you can meet lots of people, whether they become your client or not, it's still good skills, good people skills for you to be able to have that conversation, create conversation, and keep the ball rolling that direction. And next thing you'll have a little bit larger following, more people, that you reach. Doesn't hurt.
So in the guiding realm, specifically for birds, I did not realize there was that much of a demand for it. And based on what I'm seeing from your pages, this is something that people will travel cross country for, which is really wild.
Yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit, right? Like you can, drive to the other side of Michigan if you want. You can drive to the other side of the continental U.S. if you want. You can go to the farthest reaches of this continent if you want. And if you want to go farther than that, you can go around the world wherever you want.
Are there certain states in the U.S. in the lower 40 that are more known for waterfowl than others?
Yeah, I mean, that's a toss-up question, right? Like there's places that I think try and gain more exposure for advertising, maybe trying to draw more hunters in. And on that note, you see a lot of these places that, there'll be a public sign, for public hunting area or whatever that gets posted. And then we as hunters just flock to it and then overhunt it and beat it down to nothing. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, where's the next spot? And then, so I think that side of things of seeing, pop-up places that have maybe better hunting or a better reputation for a certain type of bird or whatever, with social media especially, it's good and bad. Like you can utilize it to see new places or get exposure to different hunting styles or different species or whatever. But it's hard to see that and then all of a sudden see something, a resource just get, like I said, decimated. And that's ultimately the exact opposite objective is what we should want as conservationists. Everybody wants to be a successful hunter, but sometimes being a successful hunter, it's more important to give back to those places. So that's kind of off the chain of what the question was, but definitely as far as certain types of waterfowl, I mean, the Central Flyway is regarded one of the better places in the country for waterfowl hunting. Really great dry field hunting for ducks and geese. Obviously not too many sea ducks in Kansas and Nebraska and Iowa and the Dakotas. But the ag field hunting and puddle region, puddle, oh my goodness, brain fart. There's puddle ducks in a lot of those regions. You kind of have to look at what you want to hunt, obviously, before you decide where you're going to end up. The East Coast has lots of good sea duck hunting, eiders and scoters and whatnot, brant even, and obviously on the opposite coast as well. But it is kind of cool, like certain little pockets like Washington and Oregon, maybe like they have their own little area of lesser Canada geese that, I've never even hunted out there, but that's somewhere that I'd like to go someday just to see it too. But people go to great extent to hunt different places. It's crazy.
I always wonder, and you can probably shed some light on this, do waterfowl, maybe goose or duck, do they behave different depending on the state that they're in? So a Canada goose in Michigan versus a Canada goose in Oklahoma, are they going to migrate different? Are they going to come in on decoys different? Is it like deer where different species are going to act differently?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say yes and no. I mean, ultimately, a bird's a bird or a goose is a goose. So, I mean, they're going to respond similarly to weather, right? Like, a goose here that when it's 50 or 60 degrees out, they're probably not going to want to go feed in a cornfield. They're probably going to go to, a wheat field or a hay field. Geese out there are going to, behave similarly. However, a lot of their big Canada geese, like that we have here, their residents, they stay there year round. So they know those areas so well that it does make them very difficult to hunt, more so than even our resident geese here that, maybe mix in with migrating geese. They might, start to behave a little bit differently than the typical resident geese here that, they get a little bit stale. But it is interesting to be able to compare different places, and it definitely tests you as a hunter to be able to adapt in a hurry. It's like, do you do different decoys, better hide, or even sometimes not even necessarily a better hide, just a different hide than what they've seen. So you definitely have to adjust your hunting style accordingly to the weather and to the birds in different places. But there are some days that, you might have similar weather conditions here and you hunt something similarly there. It's just case to case, is different.
Oh, I lost it. I had a great question and I lost it. Oh, yes. So I've had Canada goose before once, and it was greasy as all get out. And I grew up playing golf, so geese are my arch nemesis as far as that goes, because you're stepping in poop. They're just, I've always seen them as gross birds. So I'm a big advocate for eating what you kill. I've always seen goose kind of as the carp of the bird community.
That's a good point.
What's the purpose of, outside of management, of going goose hunting? Do you guys eat all the birds that you shoot?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to admit I don't take a gun. I might have shot 3 or 5 geese all season from September to, basically February. I really don't kill that many anymore personally. However, if I do kill them, I'm going to do something with them. They're not going to just get chucked in a ditch or something. We do always take the breasts and legs, and even the hearts are actually pretty good. But it really starts with prep work really from the time that you kill it, right? So if it's September and it's 80 degrees out, you don't want to let them sit till the afternoon. You want to get them cleaned and on ice and, even soaking in, salt brine or buttermilk. A lot of guys will do buttermilk to get a lot of that extra blood out of the breasts that sometimes that gaminess comes from. I hear greasy a lot of times from people that have eaten it. And I guess I've never really had that impression that it's a greasy meat, because I think it's pretty lean. There's not a whole lot of fat, but I guess
maybe I'm thinking about ducks.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I think greasy is an accurate description of it, because you eat it and it's just kind of, it's got something on the back end that like, it just kind of tastes grimy.
I think it can be almost like livery, right? Like,
there you go.
I always just think like when I clean a goose, even like you said, you just kind of got to turn your nose to it. You're like, oh, I don't know if this is exactly what I'm looking for table fare, but
right.
With the right prep work, I don't think there's any reason to let them go to waste by any means, but you can grind it, turn it into a burger if you mix it with some stuff, or even just eat it straight like that. Turn into any sort of sausage or jerky is always good. And like I said, as long as you prepare it right, whether you brine it, I try and brine it for at least a day, maybe even 2 days, and change the water a few times.
Oh, wow.
And then, and so that it's a labor of love, right? Like it's not just a ribeye from the store or from the local meat market that you can throw salt and pepper on.
And Gordon Ramsay on it.
Yeah. So, I'll change the water, change the brine, frequently every 4 hours initially, and then maybe, 2 or 3 more times after changing it a few times. And then after I brined it, time to marinate.
That's my problem. It was straight off the bird and on the grill.
Yeah.
So, and at that point, if you're going to eat it that way, I won't say don't eat it that way, but you cannot overcook it, because as soon as you cook it too long, game over.
It's like rubber.
Yep. Game over. It's like leather. So it's one of those things. I eat my steaks like rare, but goose meat, you definitely do not want to cook past medium rare or duck meat.
Isn't it? I know there's always been that weird consensus that you need to cook certain wild game to 160 internal, like bear. I know you have to. Whitetail, you don't, but is goose clean enough? Like, technically it's poultry.
Yeah. I guess the big thing, like, you look at a chicken breast or a turkey breast, considered poultry, right?
Yep.
Compared to a wild goose or a wild duck, just even the color of the meat, I guess, is the only thing I can go off of, is the appearance. Duck and goose is like bright, almost red meat, right? And chicken and poultry and pork
is white.
Yeah. So I don't know what the deal is there. You can get away with a pork chop, maybe not cooking it as long as a chicken breast. You don't want any pink in a chicken breast, but I've never gotten salmonella or something from a pork chop that was a little undercooked. But definitely the ducks and geese, you're better off leaving it a little bit rare. And just like if you cook a ribeye and let it rest or a steak, and let it rest for a while and keep it covered and keep that heat on it for a little while, but it's not going to cook any longer. I think that's always nice to kind of help it break down just a little bit more.
What's your favorite recipe across the waterfowl board?
Man, I would say give me a late season mallard duck with a nice, thick, fatty layer of skin on the breast. I'm going to pluck it and then just cut the breast out, leave the skin on. Same thing. I do try and marinate them still for a little while, more maybe a sweet marinade. And I will reverse sear them, or you could sous vide probably as well, and to the same effect. But reverse sear, throw it on the grill or the smoker, low temperature. Duck breasts obviously are small, so it doesn't take long to get that internal temperature up, but cook it low on the smoker, and then when it's just about done, turn the cast iron on real high and either use duck fat or butter or something, and then just sear it, that skin side down.
You do it with skin on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you eat the skin?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so if you do it right, the skin now gets this crisp layer that it sounds like you're like scraping almost like a countertop or a chalkboard.
Seen that it's like they slide the knife across it.
And it's very, very crispy and firm. And that
sounds like a hard tortilla.
Yep. That rendered down fat just adds an incredible layer to an already great cut of meat. But again, if you overcook it, it does not take long. And at that point, it's dog food.
Here's where I struggle with birds because like in the back of your brain, you're thinking like chicken, you're thinking bird skin, you're thinking like if you own chickens and you eat chicken, you're just like,
chickens are nasty. I agree.
Right. So you go and you pluck, like we did jalapeno pigeon poppers this year for a meal, and it's like, you're sitting there plucking a pigeon, you're like, this is a freaking barn pigeon, like it's gross,
and it smells like silage while you're plucking it.
Yeah, and you're sitting there like, oh, and you have to like, you sit there, you breast it out, you throw it in the big pile of meat, and you mix it in with like some duck, and you mix it in with some other meat, and so by the end of it, you're like, I don't know which one's a pigeon. kind of. Like your brain, and all of a sudden you're playing like, the shuffle thing, and all of a sudden you're like, I think it's this one, but whatever. And then you put it on a jalapeno and you're like, okay, it's good. But there's just enough separation between like plucking the barn pigeon and eating it that your brain is okay.
Right.
When you sit there and pluck out a turkey even, and I'm just like, dude, get the skin off. Like, I hate looking at that. I don't want to deal with that. That's disgusting. But you give me a rotisserie chicken, and I'm like, dude, the skin's the best part.
Yeah.
And so that's my big issue with waterfowl is you sit there and you have to go through the cleaning process, and you're like, oh, this is so freaking gross.
Sounds like it's psychological.
Oh, it's totally psychological. It's like you gotta.
Would you be less grossed out if you had one of those plucking machines that have the water and they spin?
Oh, no, way more grossed out. Those things are awful. Have you seen those?
Just a cesspool of feathers and grossness.
Well, no, I'm more thinking from the perspective of if it's just because if you're hand plucking it, like you're in there, but with that you just pull it out and it's done.
What it stems back to. I went to a chicken processing plant when I was in FFA.
This dude is scarred for life.
No,
I mean, we've all seen the Tyson documentaries.
Yeah, like the six-legged chickens. Scarred. I went to a chicken processing plant when I was in high school. And like it was cool. It was an awesome experience where we went in, we took the birds, and like they're sitting there hanging them up and electrocuting them and slitting their throats, they're bleeding out. The whole place smells like chicken blood and guts. And they go through the freaking tumbler with all the little fingers that like they come out. It's just the process was like, this is kind of gross. And then you walk out with like a nice prepackaged chicken. You're like, okay. Like I'd buy that from the store and I'd eat that. But you saw how it all happened. You're like, oh, bummer. Like I was with those birds, and like that part doesn't bother me. Like I'll go out and kill the farm chicken and eat it because it's like, it's chicken. It's just the process to get there is like, it's kind of a hard time to sit there and gut a deer and then rip something right out of it and throw it right on. You have to like have that moment of separation where the psychological.
I don't know.
He hasn't come out of the closet that he's a vegetarian.
Right. I don't know. That's probably like one of the most primal feelings ever. It's
it
just
is,
like
and I've done it.
Your deer's hanging up and you go cut a chunk out of the hindquarters and just like toss it in a frying pan.
I've done it. Like, but with birds, there's that added level of like, you're scuzzy.
Well, yeah.
Just stick to deer hunting, let the real men do the duck and goose hunting. We'll have no problem.
Okay, guy. Okay.
Okay, so let's touch on turkey hunting. So what you do waterfowl and turkey.
Yes, sir.
Which one are you more heavy in, or does it just depend on the season?
No, I always say if I could turkey hunt year round, I would. There's no hesitation in my mind. I mean, I cut my teeth in waterfowl hunting and growing up turkey hunting, but I mean, I'm very passionate about waterfowl. But there's just something about the spring turkey woods that's really special to me. You get to watch the woods wake up from its dormant state in the wintertime, and everything shooting up through the woods floor, just starting to turn green, and great sunrises, the noise of the birds in the morning. It doesn't matter if there's people there with you or not. It is just an incredible show. And then all of a sudden you just hear this turkey just hammer, in the tree.
Oh, magical.
You can feel it in your chest, and so that to me is a really cool thing. But turkey hunting has taken on just such a big part of my life at this point, because it does become so much more than the actual killing. And I think that, I'm guilty of it all the time. I'm just talking about how much killing and showing the pictures of us killing the turkeys. And it's like, people don't really realize how much goes on behind the scenes, not only to make that happen, but to make sure that it can happen next year and the next year and the next year for not only my generation, but the next generation, the next generation. And so hunting to that extent, you do need to do, I always say, as much of a hunter or killer as I am, I've got to be at least double of a conservationist, or else I'm failing. And maybe even more than double.
I love that. Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. We wouldn't have any problem.
Yeah. And so maybe, like I said, you're not going to be in a bad shape if you do more and more conservation. I can always promise you that. So whether it's predator control by trapping or shooting and calling coyotes or anything of that extent, coyotes, foxes, skunks, possums, all that stuff that is either a nest raider or killing poults. And honestly, I mean, can't do anything about this, but I mean, even birds of prey and owls, they probably kill a lot of poults and turkeys even in the roost. It's crazy. But talking about things we can control, I mean, that's just nature. It's going to kind of help regulate itself. But if I'm not managing predators and helping, in their habitat, doing things for them that they can't do for themselves. Again, like I said, I'm failing if I'm only going in there just for the kill, for the dollar, for whatever. So that's where, turkey hunting does take on so much of my life, because it's a huge, huge time commitment to be able to do that. And so, just this week, even to kind of shift gears a little bit, one of my buddies that runs a deer operation sent me a Snapchat of a deer that they found. I don't know if it was a winter kill or if somebody wounded it or whatever, but he said, this is the deer that, I saw pictures of on trail camera. It's in a different state. Beautiful deer. It was a 12-point, great potential. And he's like, this is a deer that everybody around here said they were going to pass, and got to the end of the season, hadn't seen him in a while. And now they find him 30 yards from one of their stands dead. And it's like, it's almost an emotional thing to see what potential there was. And all the things, it's February, and they're out doing deer work right now, trying to help the deer through the winter. And you find something like that where you're trying to get back to the deer, and it's like a huge kick in the balls.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, as sportsmen, it is as important as it is to be ethical and make good harvests that we aren't wounding game or crippling game, and it's going to have something that kills it later on down the road from something that we caused. But there's always factors, like I said, that we can't control. But if you can do all the little things, you're going to be in a lot better shape than just saying, I'm going to go shoot my one turkey next year and not think about them until next May again, or, whatever, or take as many people turkey hunting and just kill them all. It's just, it's hard for me to see that, where people are like, well, why can't we get another turkey tag? We just want to kill more turkeys. I'm like, I haven't killed a turkey in a few years because I don't personally need to kill one. Like, I see enough and help other people experience it that I don't need to kill a turkey, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I can appreciate the entire experience. Like, when I go out turkey hunting and I get some turkeys to come in and either interact with the decoy or interact with my calling or whatever, that completes it for me, right? Like, I don't need to see him die. I fooled him or whatever, but he's going to be there for me to fool again. And so it's hard to only do it just for the kill. So that's a real long answer, but man, turkey hunting has definitely stolen my heart for sure.
That's, my mind's kind of in I don't know, because I love the conservation aspect, but one thing I struggle with is the reason I love deer hunting is the reward. You're putting in the time, you're putting in the effort to get 70 pounds of meat, in some cases more. Whereas turkey hunting and waterfowl hunting, it's fun, but for like, what do you get out of a turkey? You put in all this time and you kill it and you get 5 pounds of meat.
Well, yeah, for me, like, I'm a terrible turkey hunter, and that's part of the reason why I have to do it, because I'm like, I get thumped every year. I've killed one turkey, and like, it was just a brawl to get there. And every year since I've gone after that, it's just like, golly, dude, these birds are just taking me and raking me over the coals nonstop. I'm just like, and I just go out and fail and fall on my face over and over and over again. It's like, I got to win.
Just come out here.
They're not that smart.
They're not gonna.
Well, like, it's just timing this, or I like don't know how to call that, or like, they're not coming into a decoy, or I just miss it all the time. It's like, it's just
Sure.
the process of learning. I've never really gone out and sat with somebody and they're like, okay, here's what you're going to do. So it's like, I'm just going out and learning in real time.
And that's the ultimately probably the best way to learn, right? Is just by messing it up and trying to not repeat the same thing again.
Yep.
You're like, oh, this didn't work last time. And that's really how I got to where, I got. Obviously exposure to other people helps.
Right.
But there's a lot of things that I didn't do right for a long time, or a lot of things over a course of a period of time.
And I'm in the middle of that right now. And I'm like, well, in a couple of years or next year, maybe the year after, it'll work out.
Yep.
I'll figure it out. And that'll be extremely rewarding to me then.
Sure.
Whereas with deer, like, I do it because it's just like sustenance. You can eat. There's that like trophy rack where it's a long game. You don't chase a single turkey for a few years typically, but you'll chase a single deer for quite a few
Can you
years.
imagine if we start putting up trail cams and like naming turkeys?
Oh man, dude. There's Tom.
You find the one with the right spurs or a special beard, and I'm telling you, people do it.
Yeah, I believe that. I've never seen one with spurs big enough you could hang them on a branch. I've never seen that, and I know guys shoot them.
So going back to what you were saying about it being such a grind and such a learning process, I think that it's necessary to go through that and experience those highs and lows, and leaving you with blue balls where he was he was hung up, you were so close,
I don't want to
or
talk
you
about
just missed him, by, like you said, a couple hundred yards, and timing.
Oh yeah,
but
that was the
makes
spring over and over again.
It makes you respect those birds so much more, and that's what people don't remember when you're in that moment turkey hunting. In Michigan, like I said, you only get to shoot one turkey.
Mm-hmm.
So say you hunt whatever one time and you're done, or you hunt a week, or you hunt the season even, and whatever the case may be, they still have to survive another 330 some or 50 some days outside of the days that you were hunting them the rest of the year. Their natural instinct is to survive. So I always say they're the smartest dumb bird in the woods.
Yes,
'Cause
100%.
the next day that you're not hunting them, they're going to be in your chrome bumper of your truck, peck, looking at their reflection in
That's
your
what I was
rims
telling
or
him.
whatever. And you're like, how was he so smart yesterday? And I could jump out of my truck and about wring his neck today. And it's just,
That's what I was telling Reed. I have a video of one. He was sitting outside of the door we walked out of yesterday, right on the step there, just pounding on the door.
yeah,
And come March 1st, he's going to be gone.
smartest bird out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the spring, Caleb I've been turkey hunting all spring, and then he sends me a video of one chasing his truck down the road.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, what the heck? It's
Hey, get back here. I need to talk to you about your car's extended
oh,
warranty.
yeah, he saw it.
Well, that's just it. I've said that too. It's funny you say, because they literally are the smartest dumb bird I've ever met. And it's like, golly, you're just when I need you to come in front of me and just mess up, you just do not miss.
This will not exist a month from now.
Yeah, that's a lot of turkeys.
This is 15 yards from where we're sitting.
Yep.
It's like right down here, and they're every single day. We've got 30 turkeys back there, but they'll come as soon as the season hits, gone.
But it's that fact that I haven't won that keeps me going towards turkey hunting. And I'm just like, I gotta succeed. And then it's like, okay, then once you get it and you're like, okay, I win this time, it's like, how do I do it again better? And like, that's what draws me back to turkey hunting all the time. Deer hunting, I get the reward of maybe chasing a big buck. So you get that aspect of it, but you get the meat. I get excited about shooting does, knowing I'm contributing to something. Waterfowl hunting, I'm just going out with buddies and having a riot. That's what I'm getting the most out of.
What wrecked it for me was shooting my first turkey with a bow. I can't use a gun now.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be bow only from here on out. I'm 2 for 2. I'm 2 for 2 with a bow.
I wouldn't even consider a turkey with a bow right now, just because I just have to win.
Unless you come here.
Yeah. You let me come hunt here for turkey, I'll do it.
Absolutely. If you use a bow, you can kill as many turkeys out here if you want with your bow.
I think turkeys do range a good bit though, and they kind of have different patterns that change depending on the season. There's some places that they are constantly use the same area to roost, maybe not the same exact tree, but within a couple hundred yards or property or whatever, they're going to be around. But, right as our season starts, at the end of April, there's some years it's still just about winter. There may be snow on the ground. Granted, this year is very, very relaxed winter at this point that I've been home for. It's been decently warm. But there's sometimes that it's like turkeys are still somewhat in their winter patterns, right? They're still flocked up. They're still going to the same food sources that they have all winter. And then right as turkey season starts, plus or minus a few days, it starts to warm up. And they're like, well, we don't need these same food sources we needed to survive all winter. And maybe, this is one of those spots your property just holds a bunch of turkeys through the winter. And then as it starts to warm up, they're like, that place was cool, but we're going to the beach. Or I mean, not really, but you get it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let's talk about Great Lakes Guided Outdoors more. Sure. So if someone wants to book a hunt, what does that look like?
So obviously I want it to be as comfortable and simple as a process for especially new customers as possible, whether they've either never hunted in general or just never hunted with us. It doesn't really matter. You don't want it to be an uphill battle for them trying to get a date scheduled. But the first and foremost thing is us actually addressing how we can help you, right? Like everybody has different needs. Like you said, you turkey hunt with a bow, you don't turkey hunt with a bow. Yeah. You've killed a few turkeys on your own already. You haven't. So if I had to hold your hand a little more, it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm here to learn.
I'm just teasing you because I can.
Yeah.
But you know,
I'll cry later.
Fact of the matter is we take people turkey hunting and waterfowl hunting at all different levels. So that's first and foremost, is I actually need to understand what it is that you need, because I don't want to, you know, provide the service for you that I would for him that you don't necessarily need, or vice versa. So once we figure out which camp location and accommodations fit, you know, we just look at the schedule and see what dates work for you and what dates work for us, and then we're good to go. So it's all through the website now in like 2 or 3 steps, and you're done.
That's super cool.
Yeah. So it sounds long-winded because ultimately I don't want to provide something for somebody that they either don't want, don't need, or it's not right. So that's the biggest part of it, is just actually getting to understand the customer and their needs first and foremost.
So, okay, as far as the guiding aspect goes, what's the furthest you've had somebody book with you from?
Probably Ireland.
Whoa.
No kidding.
Yeah, I got a good buddy. His name's Ross. He's from Ireland, and I still have an open invite to go back. I've really been trying. Like, I just tried this first part of February to go, and it's just like a couple days are off where he's actually a school teacher. He's got to go back to school, and it just didn't quite work out. But I will definitely be getting to Ireland here in the next couple of years.
Do you have any goals of guiding internationally for certain stuff?
Not really at this point. You know, I guess for me, like, I feel like you need to provide services that you're good at and familiar with. And when you go somewhere new that you're not familiar with that area, I mean, you know, maybe like New Zealand or something, they have a great Canada goose population. I've hunted Canada geese for a long
You
time.
shoot
Like,
with a rifle there.
I would be able to, I'd probably kill them however you want.
Yeah, they're like,
With a scope, headshots only.
right.
yeah, but
Biology, vitals.
I could see that, you know, being possible, because it's something that I, you know, have done for a long time. But like, I'm not just going to go jump into some crazy new species or something that I don't have any business, you know, actually guiding. So, you know, maybe if I were to take some of my clients to another operation somewhere else that, you know, you network with or something, that's different. But I don't think that I would just make a big jump across the world to do something like that.
If you tomorrow could only choose one species of bird to go after and guide, if they came out and said commercial guides are limited to one species, which one would you choose?
Yeah, I'd be turkey hunting.
Turkey?
100%.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'd sell all my goose stuff right now. It's for sale. Anybody that wants it.
Trailer included.
Yep.
Is there more money in duck and goose as far as a guide goes than turkey?
I mean,
just because of the numbers.
I don't necessarily know that you can really say one thing versus another, because I mean, it's really just how you market yourself, right? So it doesn't matter if it's ducks, deer, turkeys, any service of outfitting. I mean, it's going to really be dependent on how you build your clientele, how you carry yourself and interact with people, and you know, you just have to charge for the services you provide. So I don't know that I could really specify one way or another, you know, on that regard. It just really depends on how you want to market it, because I try to not make it about the money. You know, that really ruins it. I mean, it is a business, sure, but I mean, I try to, you know, make sure my guys get paid and they're happy. And like I said, you got to take care of the resource before you look at the dollar sign.
Yeah. All right. Talk about your crew. How many guys do you have? What's that setup look like?
It kind of just depends on the season. Turkey season, we run 3 camps. I have one in West Branch. That's where the lodge is at. And typically that's where I spend most of the spring, making sure everything's running smoothly up there. And then 1 camp near Big Rapids, and then 1 in Adrian. And so each of those camps, I also have a couple guys that work there. Our West camp at Big Rapids, that's a guided hunt. So his name's Quinn Tyson. He runs that camp and guides the hunters there. So he does the scouting and the guiding. And then down in Adrian, Andrew Carver has run that camp. We call it South Camp for, I don't know, probably 4 seasons now. And then we have a couple guys down that way that'll help him scout. Zach, his name is, he does a lot of scouting and kind of helps get the guys in and out of properties down there, make sure they're not trespassing. You know, they're familiar with where the property lines are. So that's the biggest thing, you know, when you have guys come in from out of state, you know, it's just, you don't know them from Adam sometimes. So you really have to show them like, hey, this is what's okay. This is what's not okay. And then they're in good shape from there. And then up at my camp, obviously it's a little bit larger scale, having the lodge and everything. And we have a chef that cooks for us. And then typically we'll have 1 guide for every 2 hunters. Has worked out real well, because a lot of times you'll actually shoot a double. You know, there might be 2 turkeys or 5 turkeys that come in. You can shoot 2. But you can't shoot two if you don't have two guys shooting. So typically one guide with two hunters has worked real well. And then I try and have a film crew out with everybody hunting if I can, whether I'm guiding and filming or I actually have somebody that's dedicated to filming the entire experience. So again, bringing in guys that are familiar with the eastern wild turkey. Every turkey subspecies behaves a little bit differently. When you can get guys either from Michigan or from somewhere that has eastern turkeys just like we do, generally it's worked out a little bit better for me to have guys that have that backstory to them. So Oakley Swiczkowski, big Polish name there, tongue twister. He comes from northern Wisconsin, been turkey hunting probably since he was in diapers. I don't know, he might still wear diapers if he's listening to this. But he is just an absolute riot. If you guys have watched any of our videos, we put a lot of videos out on YouTube now where it shows the entire experience. You can't get the whole feel, obviously, without being there.
The content's great. The videos are awesome.
Yeah, it kind of gives you a little bit of the behind the scenes, the setup, and then a good conclusion of how things played out. You got to watch the hunt and interact with them almost just through the video.
I like that because it's not the highlight reel.
Right.
And so many people focus on the end game. And I think that we've talked about this in the past. That's kind of where Meat Eater shined, is they like to show the process of everything and the work that goes into it. And that's kind of that style you guys have created through the YouTube channel that I really like.
So Oakley comes in, he typically stays the whole season, runs turkey hunts for us, and then also have Conner Gough, his name is. He owns a waterfowl outfit in Minnesota called Feet Down Waterfowl. They got a great operation out there, hunting feeds earlier in the season and then heated pits later on in the season through the wintertime. Really cool spot. If you guys have never goose hunted in Minnesota, highly recommend it. It's like goose hunting culture and goose hunting mecca. It's awesome. But either way, Conner Gough just as ate up his turkey hunting as Oakley and I are too. So typically those two guys, and then also Paul Hinman. He's been with us for 3, 4, maybe 5 seasons now. I don't know. He comes in, does some camera work, some guiding, and then he also helps cook from time to time. He's a good versatile player. And then this year brought on a couple new guys, so we'll see how they play out. And then there's 3 Connors in camp.
Yeah.
Myself, Conner Gough, and then Connor Carlson does
a lot
of our film work.
Are you the only ER?
I'm the only ER.
There we go. There we go. The other S are ORs. So, we had that problem initially. He was just like, can't change my name.
And then I have some guys that may come in for a couple days or a week at a time, if bookings are, thicker or thinner or whatever, depending on the season or time frame or whatever. Sometimes guys get done guiding somewhere else and need a place to land for a little while. I'll try and make sure that they're taken care of for a little bit anyway. So it works out really well. And that's just kind of part of the camaraderie of it. When you start guiding places, and it doesn't matter, turkey hunting, waterfowl hunting, deer hunting, you live a very similar lifestyle to each other. So, you start kicking it around the campfire and it's not hard to get along.
Now, as a guide, I'm assuming you have some pretty wild stories between either characters that have booked hunts and or close calls with shotguns and all the stuff like that. What's one of the craziest stories that you've encountered without naming names?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, like, it is like my day-to-day life. So like, you guys would probably ride along with me and you're like, you do this every single day like this? And I'm like, yeah, like, drive with my knee, doing 5 other things with my hands in the truck, doing 90 down a dirt road, or whatever.
You're his insurance agent. Yeah. 10 and 2, baby. 45
with the binoculars while I'm driving 80, looking for geese over here.
I really need to not talk to you about what we do with the excavation company.
I was gonna say, as the insurance agent in the room, just
yeah. So I mean, that's maybe slightly exaggerated, maybe not. I don't know, but
I understand you.
That's just where I think. To me, like, it's just the day-to-day stuff. I don't really think anything extra of it anymore, but I always say I'm an adult babysitter or a grown-up babysitter, because...
Oh, geez, I can see that.
That's the biggest thing and biggest reason that I do leave the gun at home anymore, is just because things change so fast, whether it be with new dogs or new hunters in the blind. And, you don't ever want to profile somebody by any means, but if you also aren't aware, it's too late to correct it if you aren't anticipating something to go wrong. So there are definitely a lot of times that, in an A-frame blind where there's people with shotguns, closer than arm's reach, they might start turning some way that they shouldn't and start pointing a gun some way that they shouldn't, or, leave a safety off or something that seems simple in the moment. You're like, people are like, whatever, like, no, it's not whatever, and that's where I'll be the coolest dude in the room until stuff like that starts happening. And then I always say I turn into a different person.
It's all fun and games until someone gets an accidental vasectomy.
Yeah, I think it'd be a little more than that. But either way, it's just a lot of, like I said, anticipating something to go wrong, and then when it starts
so many things to say.
starts to go wrong, correcting it before it gets bad. But you definitely see all kinds of people, all levels of experience, and it's a very interesting thing for sure.
Have you ever found some of the guys showing up in the most expensive gear, the most expensive shotguns, all of that, have the least amount of experience?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely guys that, they haven't ever done it before, but I can't really necessarily judge them or say they're in the wrong for buying the nicest stuff either, because it's like you want your stuff to work when you go to that extent to hunt places. But I guess the only thing I can say is it would be nice for them to just get familiar. I always say, go shoot skeet beforehand, or at least review your safety basics. But that's why every day, we do a safety briefing or safety speech every single day, and it seems monotonous, for guys that hunt with me for 3 days to hear the same speech, 3 days in a row. But, I've been places where, maybe you're the lower man on the totem pole and not running the show, and all of a sudden, things start going wrong, and it's like, you got to speak up, because if you don't, sometimes, people can get hurt. So
yeah, absolutely.
Never keep your mouth shut if it's time to make a correction to save somebody's life or limb or a dog.
Emphasis on the dog.
Yeah,
exactly. The dogs for sure.
We love the doggies.
Okay, so let's pivot a little bit off of, I know we touched on like the social media presence and the YouTube videos and whatnot. Have you found over the years that having to document and make content and everything takes away from the experience of the hunt?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I will say, fortunately, it is very easy now for us to document a lot of the process, right? With having a phone with a camera in our hand all the time, that's simple. But, I'm not burnt out on the hunting. I'm not burnt out on the people, but I would definitely say I'm to the point where I'm getting pretty burnt out on that portion of it. So I'm kind of starting to delegate that process.
Do you do a lot of the editing yourself?
Video editing, I don't. That's more so on, like I said, Connor Carlson does a lot of the video stuff. Okay. And it's mainly just because the time, right? Like that's not my level. That's not my most profitable, contribution to the business. If I'm spending 5 hours a day editing video instead of being the face and actually communicating with people. And on the opposite side, you're not good at editing if you're distracted and have to be on the phone with people. You've got to really be in the zone, to be hammering that stuff out. So
it's super cool that you guys have been able to find your lanes to stay in and really, really mesh as a team. You've got,
absolutely,
you're the one that runs everything. You've got another guy who handles all like the post-production. You've got a guy that guides. It's really, really cool that at this point, it just seems like a really well-oiled machine.
Oh, I really appreciate the kind words there. Cause to me, it's like, I always still feel like there's like some sort of nightmare that I need to fix. It's like, what's going to go wrong next, or who's going to help me with this next phase.
I mean, that's just life in general, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything you deal with.
So we are still in that like constant refining process of trying to do things better and more efficient, because to the tune of social media and stuff like that, I got enough videos and pictures in my camera roll of our hunts and experiences that I could post 20 times a day until I'm 80. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but I got a lot of stuff that it's just like, I don't have the time or the drive to go through, because to me, like, at that point, it seems like you're doing it for the clout, and it's like, I'm not that way. Like, I'm doing it for the people and for the networking and the connections. But then I forget like how much people do appreciate seeing it. They're like,
you're marketing yourself.
Sure.
And
I guess like while we're on that bandwagon, like I'll get it's always like the 40 to 60-year-old range that you almost forget they're on social media because like they don't ever like anything, they don't ever comment on
They're
anything.
sleeping in the shadows.
Yes. Yeah, just with all those Fed boys out there, watching everything slinking in the shadows, like you said. But not that you're doing anything wrong, but they're always watching you. But it's like when you do get to see one of those guys that, you either grew up with or went to church with growing up, whatever the case may be, with as much as I'm on the road, I'm not around the same people every day. Like when you're growing up, going to school in the same portion of your community for 18 years. But, I've been following along, watching all your videos for, and they'll say like the last 2 or 3 years. And you're like, dude, I haven't seen anything from you.
Bandwagon.
Ever. Yeah. I didn't even know you were in there. So it's like, to that tune, it is somewhat important to stay pretty consistent or relevant with just putting something out there. I don't know. They want you should be posting 5 times a day apparently, but at least a couple times a week,
That is so true about like the mid to late Gen X and the boomers is they just lurk in the shadows and they watch everything. They're on it. They just don't comment. They don't like. They don't do anything. They just consume until you have a conversation with them. Like, oh yeah, I saw you did this. You're like, huh? What?
Yep. Do you ever get told information about your life that you didn't even know what was going on because somebody saw it and posted it, and a boomer will look at it and be like, hey, I saw you guys are doing this. I was like, what?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Especially when you have a spouse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You'll like somebody be like, hey, you guys are doing this now. And I'm like, we are? Really? It's like, yeah, your business partner posted about it. And you're like, oh.
It's a lifestyle for that generation.
Interesting.
So I think like with the social media and stuff, there's a very fine line between posting enough, but not letting it just overrun your entire life
right.
to where you're distracted from potential interactions with people or just, living behind a screen at that point. So for me, obviously I got a lot of coordination going on with, my team members that do a lot. I like you say, I run the show. Obviously, I'm at the top overseeing a lot of different things, but I don't like to think of it that way because I've got so much delegation going different places that they do help the machine run more so than what I could do on my own. So they got a lot going on, but it's like I try and really sit down and hammer out like all that phone stuff, in one time block to where it's not ruining my whole day and I'm just eating up with it all the time.
I think if you it's like the way I've always seen it is like a clock. So if you were to take the face off of a clock and look at the insides and all the cogs, like everything, every person that you delegate to is a different gear and different cog that is pivotal to the business, and you are the power bank that drives it. So whether you're like this watch has a little spring and tension, and every time I move it, it charges. So that's you, and the watch or the clock will not work without these. Yes, exactly. If one of the gears is not meshed properly, it's toast. It will not keep time. And so when I say you run the show, it comes back to you because how you run things as the business owner and how you properly delegate things keeps that meshed and keeps all those gears turning exactly how they need to be in order to keep time and run the business properly.
And while you're on that too, I mean, you're spot on. But when if you want to call it the power bank or whatever, everybody's eyes are on you, right? So like you got a target on your back that, all of a sudden you make one teeny wrong move, it's under a magnifying glass and it's just like the world is ending. So it's like you do need to hold yourself to a very, very high standard to really try and not make any slip ups.
Maybe I shouldn't have used like a watch or clock reference. That was just first thing that popped in my mind. I'm going to use like for all of the guys out there, like it's like an engine. You've got your spark plug, you've got your valves, you got your gasoline and everything. It's just everything works together. You have to have the perfect timing of the piston and the perfect amount of fuel coming in for the spark. And you have to have the distributor that sends the power to it's just everything's got to work together to make something function.
And if you don't anticipate the next motion and be prepared for it, it's too late.
Exactly. And then you throw a rod and it's game over.
Well, the other thing too is you're probably in the middle of it and it probably just seems like chaos in motion to you where you're just like, I don't freaking know why we're doing this. and then when you look at it from a social media page, you're like, yeah, dude, clean cut operation, everything's smooth going. And it's like, you have some systems set up that work really well and some good relationships. But like in your position, you're probably just like, a lot's happening all the time, and I have a general idea, and like we're just gonna figure out how to do it. And you're driving 90 mile an hour down a dirt road, making a bunch of phone calls, scratching stuff down on notepads, and
Yeah, and I think the hard thing with guiding and outfitting is like it's a seasonal job, and everybody that is still a part of my team or our team, they have other teams that they work as a part of, the rest of the year. It's not like just a typical job where everybody works together and there's hopefully the same cash flow, all year round. So it's like, how do you continue to, give enough initiative to these people that, they don't abort you, the 10 months that they're away from you doing other things. It's like, so that's another thing that it's very difficult to just keep everybody together. So I'm fortunate to have the crew of guys that are as loyal as they are.
That's super cool. All right. Well, let's focus a little bit more on you and peel back the layers of who you are. So you ready to go deep for a second?
Ooh.
Here we go.
Hit me.
What are you passionate about?
Obviously hunting takes the forefront of what's going on, but to me, it doesn't really matter what it is. It ultimately always boils back to the people. So whether it's hunting or sports or church or anything to that regard, I always enjoy getting to meet people, and everybody has such different backgrounds. So it's like, you can always find something to, like you said, peel back layers and get to know, new people. And when you're exposed to different things like that, I think it makes you a more well-rounded person. So that's probably my biggest passion right now, has just been digging into how people's brains work, right? And, what's your backstory that kind of led into you becoming the way that you are from what happened in your past, and what it kind of creates into you moving forward as a person too. And then you actually tie that and make it full circle, and you're like, how can I apply some of the things that I've learned from other people to my life, to maybe make me a more well-rounded person, to where I can apply something that maybe somebody else messed up, to where I don't do it, the same way. I can cut it a different way or go a different direction, and then you hopefully see a different result. So I think that's something that I've been very passionate about. And then, I mean, that's the deeper level. I love other things other than hunting too. I love to play golf. I love to just hike or explore outside. But you definitely don't find me inside very often.
I love the varying answers that we get to that question. That fascinates, because that's half the reason we're doing this, is we want to know what drives people. We want to know why they do what they do. And, we'll ask some people, what are you passionate about? And they're like, oh, I love goose hunting.
Yeah.
But then you'll get guys that are just, they'll stop and they'll think, and then they'll answer it the way you do. And it shows. You can really, really tell who a person is by how they answer that question.
Sure.
And building relationships and understanding how we all operate as humans is a very, very incredible skill that I would argue is perishable and not easily developed.
Yeah. And so on that note right there, where, like you said, with opportunity going different directions of meeting people, like just for instance, how my brain works. When I was in Oklahoma, it was during this torrential downpour rainstorm. Whether it was raining or not, I typically will stop and pick up hitchhikers, which people will shake their head at me and say, I'm going to get, mugged one of these days. But it was like a torrential downpour, and this guy's like very clearly looks homeless. He's got really tattered clothes on with a big backpack, walking on this highway. So I like pull over and try to stop and let him in my truck, and he like waves me off, like, no, he doesn't want to ride. And so like the entire rest of that day, my brain was just like, I was so confused. I was like, why would somebody not want to ride if it was given to him? So it's just like stuff like that, and instances like that, like people think such different ways. Like if I was walking on the road right there and somebody's like, hey, get in my truck, I'm like, yeah. So it's like just human behavior is so puzzling sometimes.
What's fascinating to me is if you were not in the hunting guide realm, you would absolutely destroy the sales world. Because that's, if you think about it, whether it's no matter what industry, whether it's auto sales, pharmaceutical, insurance, you have to understand human behavior. You have to understand how people tick and stuff like that. Heck, that can even be correlated into your business and how
Sure.
you're working with clients and how you're selling yourself to landowners and stuff like that. So
And
that's a
same
huge
thing,
skill.
getting shut down for giving somebody a ride like that. I mean, talk about, having great relationships with landowners. You can hunt these oodles and oodles of places, but there's always that one place that has all the deer or all the geese that you can never get permission for. And, you've tried every avenue and
It's
you're
the
like,
sanctuary, man.
yeah. And I mean, sure, there's always the excuse of, our family hunts here or whatever else. Like, that's always understandable. But there's some people that just don't let people hunt. And you're like, why? Why not? Why not? And so it's like, you always feel like there's got to be some way in there, but sometimes there's just not. But it's funny that you mentioned studying human behavior in sales. That's actually something I've really been diving deeply into, and not only in the hunting world, but in a lot of different atmospheres of sales and human behavior, because the opportunity, once you are able to master that and understanding and dissecting somebody's needs and what makes them the person that they are, like you said with sales, I mean, it's people will just hand you cash at that point. But like I said, I try to not make it just about the money. The nice thing about money, though, is it does, buy you more time, essentially, to do other things. So it has to be a healthy balance where, you do pay your bills and are building something successful. But for me, it's so that I can appreciate things, more without having that stress of, am I going to be able to make a payment this month or something like that? Like, you want to be in a consistent state where, like you said, you're successful in that front.
Are you much of a reader at all?
Big time. Yeah. I kind of got away from it for a while, right? Like, I grew up and I was definitely a big time book nerd through school. And then it's like, I've just been focusing so much on just work. And then once you get to the point where, you start seeing how other people move that are very successful, you're like, oh, maybe I could learn something from them. And so a lot of these successful people do write books.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of really, really good knowledge in books like that. So,
have you read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie?
I've not read that one.
It's an old one, but it is very, very good. Dale Carnegie was a legend in the realm of studying human behavior and understanding how different personalities and how to communicate with different personalities. So in that realm of development and understanding people, that's one.
Be a good one.
Add that one to the list. That's a killer. Coming from somebody in sales, that's a killer one to read.
For sure.
All right. So next question that I have for you: if you go back and give young Conner a piece of advice, what would it be?
I mean, man, going way back to young Conner, I had perfect attendance through school and took that very, very seriously. I think I would say have a little more fun and loosen up. And then, as kids, we're kind of pushed through this funnel. Like I said, you got to be very successful at school, which the flip side of it is it does teach good discipline, right? So I say that lightly, where you still find that happy medium of always being disciplined and getting your stuff done, but maybe taking some time in a healthy manner to be able to relax a little bit. But kids today, it's like you're almost looked down on if you don't plan on going to college or aren't going to the best university or whatever. And that's not always the best option for every single person. Now, is there applications for it, or are there applications for it? Sure. A brain surgeon needs to go to, school for a long time and follow people and learn from people that are very good at brain surgery before they just start dissecting a live human. But for me, like I said, I went to college and obviously it was a great experience. I learned a lot. I networked a little bit, but I definitely could have gotten by without the debt that came with it. But I always would say, before you make a jump like that, know what it is you want to do with it. Right. So, if you are going to go to college, make sure you have a plan. Don't just, you hear it all the time. I'm just going to college. What are you studying? Oh, I'm still figuring it out. You're racking up a lot of debt to just figure it out.
Coming from the guy with 6 credits in the room, he is right. Don't let it consume you, because that is not detrimental to your success.
No. So, and the fortunate thing with life is, right, it's not your only chance, if that's what you do and, you learn from it and move on, you can always go and do something, and you can always pay that school off and keep on going, and do something else. But if you don't necessarily have to go to school, I think sometimes it might be better just to go get some life experience and see.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
learn how to weld.
I'm not just saying go be a bum. Don't just be a bum somewhere.
Do an apprenticeship. Get in the trades.
Go job shadow. Go interact with people, and like you said, with reading books, study successful people, and they want to see people succeed, right? Like they're not going to give you a free handout. But if you can get in the room with people that are whether business smart or hard workers that have pioneered something from nothing, I always look at instances of trying to find one thing I can learn from somebody, be it good or bad, right? Like if I can learn one thing that helps me or learn one thing that you did that didn't work for you, that now I'm going to be like, oh, that didn't work for him, And maybe it's bad to think that way.
No, learn from other people's failures. That's a
sometimes
huge thing.
that's going to be a huge proponent to your success and expedite things. So definitely, get in the room with the right people and just get exposed to different things. Like I said, I didn't even know guiding and outfitting was a thing until I got out and saw it.
Mm-hmm. That's where I feel like when we've talked about this before, so I feel like the education system has failed in that way.
Yeah.
Of where they really train kids in the younger generation to follow a system, but self-education is so incredible. The amount of information we have access to in our pocket.
Oh
yeah.
Gosh.
You can learn how to take a Boeing 727 engine apart.
On YouTube, probably.
On YouTube. Our parents did not have access to that kind of information. So you can teach yourself how to do anything. You can learn anything. And that's where I feel like the need for learning world history and kinesiology and trigonometry and calculus, like that kind of stuff, is slow, depending on the field you go into, is slowly fading into the darkness.
I think with the way that, as we kind of started this podcast off of the age range, you start talking early 2000s on, you're just taught to have instant gratification for everything. Like you said, whether it's on your phone
Bezos.
or everything's just got to happen, expedited. Learning and finding a career and pioneering a trade or, creating a career for yourself, it's not going to happen overnight.
Takes a lot of time.
So that's where, you might watch that video of the Boeing motor or engine, being taken apart or whatever. And in the video, just like a fix-it video of a part of a truck or whatever, they do it in 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Well, they can do it in 2 minutes and 47 seconds because they've been doing it for 50 years. You can't expect to go in there. And I find myself with this like, oh, it's just a short video. I'm sure I can probably do that real quick.
Nope.
On the truck. Yeah. And like 3 hours later, you broke the part that you needed.
Your knuckles are bleeding, and it's just. But here's the thing: I guarantee you, the next time you go to do that, or the next time you have a buddy that has the same problem, you're going to be able to save them that time. And I've seen it with projects. Sure. Whether it's, I think the thing I could correlate it to is like putting lift kits on trucks. I've done it 4 or 5 times now, and I had so much trouble on mine with like 5 or 6 things. It was separating the ball joints was a problem because they were like seized up, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. So when a buddy called me, he's like, "Hey, can you help me do this?" I'm like, "Sure."
No problem.
And I knew exactly what I needed to do to save myself 5 hours of agony with a hammer. It's stuff like that in life. It's just teach yourself and learn. Always be growing. Don't become stagnant.
And be teachable, right? Like if you're in the room, like I always will say that whether I'm goose hunting or turkey hunting at this point is typically what I'm doing a lot of the time, or fishing or whatever. When I find myself in the blind with somebody that's been doing it longer than I have or does it different than I do, a lot of times I just say I'm trying to be a sponge. Like I'm typically very good at conversation, but there's days that I find myself when I get to the end of the hunt and I'm like, man, I didn't interact a whole lot. But it's like, I don't even notice I do it, but I'm just like hyper focused on the people doing different things, that it's like, how can I learn, one new calling sequence, or, why did somebody do it this way? Turkey hunting, why did they set up differently than I may have, and those atmospheres, like if you're able to learn from other people, like that's where I've got to admit, like I don't know it all. We, as humans, we don't always know it all.
I respect that. The fact that you actually have that mindset puts you leagues further, because it's so easy to, somebody in your shoes, it'd be so easy to have ego and pride and be like, well, yeah, well, what are you doing?
You see it time and time again, right? Like, and it's very difficult to work with when you've got guys that, like you said, you just stay out of their way, but it's like they got it figured out. And you're like, man, it just puts a huge cap and a limiting factor on where you're at. It's like, you're not like, yeah, you're really good at what you do, but you're not going to get any better.
Elon Musk is always learning. Jeff Bezos is always learning. Andy Frisella is always learning. I mean, there's anybody, you name them, they're constantly renewing their mind. They're constantly learning. They're constantly growing. Sure. And it's like, why should you stop?
Like you said, there's an oodles and oodles of information available at our fingertips around the clock, no matter where you're at anymore. It's like, there's no excuse not to be.
Like your brain, and here's like my argument for it. What happens if you stop working out?
You get fat.
You
lose muscle.
You lose muscle. Your leg. If you're not walking around, if you sit on the couch, your leg muscles take a hit. If you're not lifting, your biceps get small. Our brain is the most important muscle that we have, and if you're just sitting on the couch consuming Netflix or scrolling through TikTok all day, you're not exercising the most important muscle in your body.
100%.
It's turning into mush.
Oh my gosh. Have you had days where you wake up and like scroll right away and then try to function through the rest of the day? It's brutal.
Yeah.
You're just like disassociated to the max. You have days where you wake up and like you're just on task the entire time, taking phone calls, doing this, setting things up, building things, accomplishing, and like all of a sudden you're just like, you get to the end of the day and you're like, I feel good and I'm tired, but I feel good and I've been clear all day long and it's zoomed by.
So that's one thing, if we want to tie a couple things that we've discussed together with this, when you actually look at guys that are very, very successful, they have a system and they stick to it every single day, which it seems monotonous.
You're talking routines, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And not just the routine, but because they have the routine, before the routine, they're already prepared for it. So when you get up in the morning and you don't feel like getting up, whether it's early or it's dreary outside or something happened and, you're like dragging in the morning, you're like, I don't want to get up. It's like you get up and you function the same way that you do every single day. And for me, I always try and end my day with how I'm supposed to start the next day. Excuse me. So that when I do get up in the morning, I'm like, where do I need to begin so that I do continue to take that success from that small task and build it into the next one and into the next one. And then before you know it, you don't even really recognize you're doing it because it just becomes your routine. It's like, that's just how you function every single day.
You ever heard of the power list?
Mm-mm.
So this is something that I've done. I try to do it almost daily, and I do it the night before. It was created by a guy named Andy Frisella. He's the owner of First Form and founder of First Form. It's a supplements company.
They just put out a really good video yesterday too, by the way. Carry on.
Okay. I'll have to go check it out.
Do you listen to Really F?
I'm sorry?
Like the podcast or a different,
Mm-mm.
like a
It was
YouTube?
just posted on Instagram, but it
Okay.
was very, very good.
Shout out to the hat I'm wearing right now. Real American Freedom Gear. Personal excellence.
I'm really jealous of that hat.
Do you like that?
I do.
They sold out. They sold out in 4 minutes.
I know.
Okay.
I want one.
Moving on to the power list, and this is very interesting because I think this is the first time we've ever pivoted kind of in the
Into
outdoor.
Real F?
No, into just like stuff outside of the outdoor realm, like into personal excellence, development and stuff. I think it's something that
we're big Andy Frisella fans around here.
I think the big thing is this is stuff that isn't discussed enough amongst men anymore,
Sure.
and it's lacking. So at least the power list. We'll
right, yeah.
because this is about you. So we'll touch on this and then I want to move on from that. But the power list is 5 critical tasks. It was created by Andy, and I do it every single night. It's 5 critical tasks you need to accomplish. And so before I go to bed, I write those 5 critical tasks down
and accomplish them the next day
that you need to accomplish the next day. And when you wake up, before you go to sleep the next evening, you have to accomplish those. And it's not brush your teeth, make your bed. It's like critical tasks, whether it's contact this client, It's, change the oil in the truck. It's things that you have to accomplish.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, you have your check boxes. If you accomplish all 5 critical tasks, you win the day. If you miss one, you lose the day. And then you have a compilation of months and months that you can look back and you can say, wow, I suck because I lost every day this week, or I won every day this week. And that's just where like that systems comes in.
Accountability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if you want to get better at reading, put reading.
Make it up.
Make it a critical task. That's number 1 on your list. Read. And then you develop the skill though. After 14, 15 days of putting reading on there, you're naturally in the habit of reading 10 pages or whatever it may be every single day. And then you can take it off the list because you're already doing it.
You don't have to worry about it. Right?
Exactly. So that's something that I've been doing, and that's huge as far as the systems and growth, personal growth goes.
Yeah. And I think it's always very, very good to get exposure to other successful people and actually apply it to your life. Because there's people that, maybe read books. We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Reed's just...
I'm getting antsy. I don't know. I'm just struggling. I'm hitting things.
You need to go take a lap around the house.
I don't know. I'm not used
Squirrel.
to the mic being 4 inches away.
There's a squirrel in the pod bunker.
His name's Lieutenant Dan. He's above your head.
But going back to that, there's people that, read or consume this knowledge from successful people and then don't apply it. So it's a really good thing when you're able to actually apply it, do it, have it become habit, which, like you said, maybe it's 14 days, maybe it's 30 days. I think it's personally a little bit longer than that, before.
In today's society, yeah, absolutely.
Again, to other people, Andy Elliott's a really good one too, that
Andy's the man.
Love having
dude.
in my face every single day, man. That's one thing that if you are in a bad mood or you're feeling sluggish, I don't care who you are, you watch a video like that, if that don't light your fire, your wood's very wet.
Andy Elliott will make you feel like a piece of garbage.
Good.
In a good way.
Good. Yeah.
He's awesome.
Yeah. So he says 100 days for a habit, right? So either way, when you're able to tie those things in and create habit that way and actually practice it, you're going to start seeing the results that you want. That's
so cool. Yeah. I wondered if he was one of the ones on the list, because he's killer.
Oh yeah,
he's awesome with that.
This is like making me want to restart. I actually just like re-downloaded and reset 75 hard on my phone because I'm like, it's ticking. It's time.
But that's good though. Like I think you already touched on it, but there's not enough discussion between, men in today's society to have that accountability, not only for yourself, but between each other. Like some people worry like, oh, like I don't want to offend somebody or whatever, but like at this point, like who cares? You can't have that mindset. If somebody's being a POS and they're being lazy and lackadaisical, you should be able to, just about crack them over the head and say, hey, pull your head out of your rear
in a loving, in a loving way.
Yes. Pull your head out of your rear because I care about you and I want to see the best you that you can be. And then you hope that, God forbid, you hope that you aren't acting that way or, living that way. But if it turns back on you, you hope that you have that support group in your corner too. That's like, hey, you're slipping here, fix it, and here's how I'm going to support you. I'm going to encourage you to see you become better or become the best you that you can be. And that's huge.
Yeah. I mean, frick, Andrew Tate talks about that all the time. This the demasculinization of society prevents and holds us back from holding each other accountable because everyone's always up in each other's feelings and they're worried about relationships and stuff like that. It's like, if that person is not willing to get off their ass and like, you're right, then that's on them.
Leave them there.
Yep. Well, the reality is like the truth is offensive. If you're going to do something the right way, you're going to go out and you're going to win the day. You're going to kick butt. You're going to, go build something successful. Somebody's going to get upset. Somebody's going to get offended in some way, shape, or form. You hunt ethically and you shoot the big deer. You shoot the doe. Somebody's going to start chirping. It's like everybody's going to be mad. So why in any way should you stop and limit yourself and hold back from what you know is right versus like, hey, I'm just going to go all in. Not pay attention to anything that's coming like negative around me. I got my few guys in my corner that are actually paying attention to who I am and what I'm doing. And they're saying, yep, you're on track. You might want to adjust this. That seems right. That's absolutely wrong. You need to you have those guys that hold you accountable, that sharpen you. And we've lost that a lot in our culture, but everybody's always going to be scoffing, especially if you're touching on truth. You want to talk about like talking about truth in this culture, holy crap, it's like hyper offensive. You know, I can't say there's two genders without this podcast getting flagged, you know?
Yeah.
Demonetized.
There are two genders, buck and doe.
Now demonetized.
So, but like, that's what I'm saying, you know, because everybody's so worried about that. But like, the reality is, like, if you're going to do great things, or if you're going to do anything semi-successful, you are going to get a ton of flack for it. And a lot of people are going to get pissed off because maybe it's solely because they don't have the balls to go do what you want to do.
Yeah. So there's a video I saw the other day. Somebody said, you know, or somebody asked someone that has a very, you know, elaborate workout routine, you know, why do you do this every single day? And his response was, for me to create more distance between me and you, you know? And so to that note where you're sitting and saying, you know, I agree, there's always going to be, I always say the crabs in a bucket theory, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, you're in a bucket and there's a crab trying to reach for the lid, trying to get out. And every crab in the bucket's just in there pulling you back down. Like, no, like, even though on the outside of the bucket's the whole world and oodles of opportunity, you know, the nature of those crabs is to pull you back in so you fail. But I don't want to be the crab in the bucket. I want to go see the world, and I want to build everything that I can, right, to be successful and be the best me that I can be. But not only that, I want to bring my team with me, you know, because I know I can't do it on my own. And so as you start to weed through those people that are the crab trying to pull you back down, once you get out of their grasp and start associating with other crabs that made it out of the bucket, man, you know, you start really gaining momentum and making, you know, not ripples, but actually making waves. And that opinion of the crab in the bucket, it doesn't even matter anymore. You know, you're going to continually get that. And again, back to Andy Elliott, you know, he's like, I love my haters all the time. He's like, keep running the hate. You're pushing me up in the algorithm, you know, just running your mouth in the comment threads or whatever. You know, that's driving him to get more engagement from the people that he wants the engagement from too. So it doesn't matter. They're here, wherever. That's exactly what you want.
Dude, it's all about mindset and perspective. Like, even for instance, the other day, this guy commented on one of our videos and was just like, you still have time to delete this and keep your dignity. And
Ooh.
I was like,
What did I say?
I responded, and I was just like, I think it was the one with the Sitka video. That one. And I responded, I'm just like, well, we'll just throw you in the pool of people who don't get the joke. And he's like, oh no, everybody understands that Sitka's expensive. You know, there's just fools like you that are out chasing clout. And I'm just like, there's nothing serious about this video, but thanks for boosting our algorithm.
But thanks for boosting the algorithm.
Like, it's stuff like that. It's like,
you
really think that I care about the time you took to post, like, to type that. Go do something with your life. Like,
in the words of TJ Flagg, I will make time for you now.
It's like the 20 minutes that it took me to film that. It's like, who cares? It's like, life is too short to worry about stuff like that.
And so you see it time and time and time again.
Yeah, no, that's my next.
Those people are fun at parties usually.
Yeah. Then that's my next question for you is like, how much flack do you get on social media? Because you post some pretty high level content. You clearly you're a guide, and I'm assuming most of the time guides aren't the most popular with the general hunting public. So what kind of stuff do you see? How do you combat it?
I mean, you don't see it like super frequently, right? Like, I think that's for a few reasons. Like, again, people are just scrolling at this point. So it's like, you know, you do want people to engage in your content. You do want them to comment, spark conversation, you know, send direct messages, whatever the case may be. Like, it really bugs me. It really bugs me the amount of people that I am able to interact with via social media. Like, when I post a story or post a reel or a picture or whatever, how many thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, millions of people that it reaches. Excuse me, I had a hiccup again. And how few people actually interact other than just liking it, which, you know, you can always say, oh, I appreciate the likes, you know, for sake of the algorithm, or appreciate somebody dropping an emoji below your video or whatever. But for me, social media is meant to be social, right? Like, don't just be a ghost follower. Like, I'm a person. The reason I have social media is to network and connect with people. So, you know, I always want people to actually comment. So where I'm saying that with people commenting hate. Like if somebody's going to comment hate, they really got to go out of their way to do it anymore. But it definitely does happen. The hard thing that I see is people are going to make an assumption based on, a short clip where, you could have done this better, or you should have done this different, or you did that wrong, or this is illegal, or, just.
That's the best. This is illegal.
Yeah.
Like, is it?
Yeah. Just crazy assumptions that, again, people have no leg to stand on, where you're like, okay. And
we call those people NPCs, non-playable characters.
That's right. and so it's like, as you know, with anything, whether it's in sales or in a comment thread like this or deer management or whatever, when somebody's already got their mind made up, their ears are already closed off. We already talked about this last time. You aren't thinking logically. There's no conversation to be had. So sometimes, like you said, sometimes you can make a comment to kind of make light of the situation and turn it into a joke, because obviously it doesn't affect us any. You're like, this guy's being an idiot and who cares what happens after this? Click, hit send on the comment, whatever. Or, sometimes you can try and bridge it to at least not getting them to see your side right away, but can you kind of make light of it in a different direction? Sometimes you just don't even respond at all.
Well, I think that's the most fun part is like people say these things, they'll like comment
they want to spur, they want
they're
get
sitting
your
there
reaction.
spurring, and you're just sitting there laughing like, this is awesome.
Yeah,
And like, we sit around in the bunker and just laugh our heads off about like, mics go off and we're sitting here like, dude, look what this guy said. And we just sit there and like, playfully, but just roast them. Like,
well, that it's stuff like that where I wish like teleportation was legit, to where we could like, as soon as someone posts a comment like that, we all just show up in his living room and then we roast him in person.
Whoa.
It's like, whoa. It's like, hi there.
do you shoot big bucks or not?
Yeah.
You want to delete that comment now?
Yeah. We'll give you
like,
your dignity.
I know we call it social media, but if I'm being honest, it's not social media anymore. It's consumer media.
It's ruined.
It used to be
social part, sure.
Like
consumer media,
think about it. Think about when Facebook when we first got Facebook and Instagram, like to communicate with somebody,
comments were just blowing up.
You had to post on their wall, like, and there was no direct messaging. There was none of that. It was like, somebody would post a picture of their tacos and it would get 350 likes, because that to me is the purest form of social media. That's what it was. It was communicating, it was sharing your lives. And now there's a rapper named Kevin Gates, and you know who Kevin Gates is?
I'm kidding.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Kevin Gates was asked one time why he's not on social media, and he came out and he's like, social media is depressing because what you're doing with social media is you're comparing your real life to somebody's highlight reel.
Right.
And he said comparison is the killer of all joy.
And that's just like you said earlier, spot on.
So there's somebody who may be obsessed with duck and goose hunting, and he's just been destroyed on public land.
Sure.
And so he's sitting on his couch looking at you crushing life, Andy Elliott style, and he's upset by that. And he's comparing his life to your highlight reel.
Right.
And it's killing the joy. When in reality, he sees none of the work that goes in on the back end.
And not only that, but also, I mean, that's what I was referencing earlier, where you said there's just so much back end work that makes, that highlight reel of pictures happen. But to the tune of the younger person or less experienced person or whatever the case may be, seeing that, if you scroll back in my Instagram far enough, it's just like, excuse me, just like Andy Elliott right now has been posting every once in a while a clip back 10 or 15 years ago. And it says, people laughed at me or told me I was stupid for trying or whatever.
Before the tight pants and tight t-shirts.
That's right. And then it switches gears and it's like, and typical Andy Elliott in your face.
Yeah.
And it's like, now look at me now, and so I by no means say that to say I'm where I want to be, right? Like I'm still reaching, I'm still pushing. I still want to better myself and better the experience, not only for myself, but for my customers, or for anybody that I interact with. But I'm not lying to you. If you scroll back, however, whatever, 1,600 posts or however many are on my page, you'd laugh at what the beginnings were. They're not deleted. Go look at it. If you got enough time to scroll back that far,
there's nothing to hide. You're not putting on a show.
Right.
There's so many people that are focused on putting out high level content, and they care so much about the likes. It's like, you should not care. Like, that takes away from the experience of the actual task at hand. Right. No matter what you do, whether you're into race cars, whether you're into souping up lawnmowers, whether you're an art collector. I mean, it does not matter. Do what you love, and if you want to document it, don't let it take away from that experience.
Right.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Keep talking. I'm going to pee.
Yeah, go for it. Leaving that stuff up, though, is so important because, like, you know,
do you want me to come with you?
You going to hold it for
No,
him?
I'm kidding.
Leaving that stuff up there is so important. I was just scrolling through, I think, Chris B's page the other day. He's got all sorts of stuff going on. You know, he's sponsored by Matthews, going all over the world and hunting. He's like, you know, pushing UltraView like crazy and like, you know, just pushing his products. And you're like, dang, this guy's got it going on. You sit there and start scrolling. And you get to like some of his first posts and it's like him and his buddies at like 16 years old shooting frogs with bows. You know, like these little hand stick bows. Yeah. And it's like, and that's real.
And like we already touched on with growing up that way. I mean, that's how, like I already said, I grew up in a creek, you know, with no shoes on. Yeah, no shoes on, rolling around in the mud, just 100%. Coming back, just disgusting.
My mom always told us we'd be hanging out in the house. She'd be like, y'all need to go outside and go blow the stink off.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, go. She, yep, get your duds on, go blow the stink off. So we go out and run. I mean, just ramp for hours, BB guns and like building bows, forts, everything. Come back completely muddy head to toe. We're like, Mom, we blew the stink off. She's like, all right, go get in the shower. We're like, but we just got. She's like, nope, go get in the shower. You got outdoor stink on now. Go get in the shower. Time for dinner. But it's like that's what it was. Started getting dark outside. You ran back into the house and dinner was ready.
That's right.
You know, but so many people miss that where it's like that's real life. And even the people nowadays, you sit there and you try to form your life and your world and your presentation and everything on social media. You put the highlight reel up there, but it also like it has this draw to want to change how you are so you can try to present something better. It's like, you know, that's why the hunting public is so killer because it's like a bunch of dudes.
Right.
Just doing what everybody else can always do and what they can do with what they have. And it's like, it's not all the nicest stuff. It's not all of this. It's just,
they document it well.
Yeah. It's like, we're just doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's really the last missing link, I guess, with what I do in a day-to-day regard, because I've always said, like, I can't guide and film to the fullest of my either ability. Like I can either, can I hunt and film a little bit? Maybe. But I mean, I've had clients hunt other places and they'll always remember that. They're like, oh, the guide was always on his phone, or he was always doing this, or he was always doing that. And you become displaced from actually interacting with people. So it's like, it's not hard for me to say, I can't do both, you know, so I need to focus on what I need to do. And so by bringing in the right people to document it, where you don't have to worry about you like missing the opportunity to film something, it doesn't take away from the people that are with you in that moment.
Right.
If I'm being honest, that's what we need to a certain extent, and we got to find that person. So if there's somebody listening that's lurking in the shadows that loves running cameras and stuff and would want to hang out with us, we would welcome it, because the amount of times we're doing something like this, or we are cooking a meal together and shooting the archery course, or going to events and doing stuff to where I'm in the same boat as you. I want to be talking to people. I want to be communicating. I want to be building relationships. Same thing with Reed. And if I'm the one behind the camera, it takes away from the experience. So either A, we're not going to be documenting it properly, or B, I'm not going to be having I'm not going to be interacting and giving my full potential in that realm. All right, my next question before we move into our favorite segment is, somebody is looking to potentially start guiding in the waterfowl and bird realm, anything like that. What would be a couple areas that would be good for them to get started?
Man, I mean, first and foremost, it is a very saturated market at this point.
Is it really?
I mean, it doesn't matter where you are.
You mean just the waterfowl hunting in general, or guiding?
Guiding especially.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess I maybe put Michigan 5, 10, 15 years or so behind some other places in this regard. But within the last 5 to 10 years even, it's really changed a lot in Michigan just since I've started. And I guess maybe I'm partially guilty of that because, 5, 10, 15 years ago, I wasn't a player, because I was in school. But it's really exploded in the last decade. So actually getting involved in setting yourself apart is a difficult thing for a lot of reasons. As easy as it is to document things, videos, pictures, networking, you go on Facebook and it is not hard to reach a lot of people or post a lot, or Instagram or TikTok or whatever. I mean, TikTok kind of sucks for hunting stuff, really, but
Yeah.
TikTok just sucks in general.
Yeah. China. But
there's our strong preference.
yeah. Anyways, I think it's difficult to stand apart. So you're really going to need to focus on your networking and being able to offer something to somebody that can scratch your back, right? So like
Bring in value.
Yes, yeah. So like you can't just stick your hand out and expect somebody to just grab it and pull you underneath their wing. But if you can show them like, hey, here's some things I've done. Maybe I haven't done it perfectly, but I've done a lot that's different from everybody else. That's the first thing you hear. Well, like, I've bird hunted a lot growing up, and I've gotten to the point where I like to take other people more than I like to kill them myself. And you're like,
Yeah.
That's what everybody says. So say something different. Not that you're wrong for saying that, but you ask for a tip there. That's a tip. Like, do something different and portray it differently. Add another level of value somehow, or something so that you don't get swept into everybody else.
Yeah, you have to, that just noticeably different.
Yeah.
JND, my dad talks about it all the time in marketing. You have to have just a little bit
right.
that's like, okay, when you go with Conner Gough, this is what you're getting versus everybody else. Because it's like, yeah, everybody, it only takes a couple guys to go lock up a few thousand acres in an area.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's a start. And then something that I learned, actually, Ramsey Russell, I know you guys said you don't do a whole lot with bird hunting, but Ramsey's very, very deep in the waterfowl community. It's called getducks.com. He's got something to duck hunt or bird hunt on every single continent other than, I think, Antarctica. I mean, there's options, oodles and oodles of options around the world.
It's not even there. It's an ice wall.
Yeah. But either way, he told me, this is a while ago, if you want to get good at guiding, get a job in customer service. And in the moment I was like, I want to go be a guide, and he's like, go be a bag boy at a hotel or work at a valet. Or like I always tell kids, like I did, I worked at a golf course as a bag boy and, washed clubs in carts and did that sort of thing where you're interacting with people.
That's where you get it from.
Yeah. And so you get to meet a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds. And like I mentioned a lot of other times, you learn to read the room that you're in. Like we can talk a certain way now, but if we're with 70 or 80-year-old guys at deer camp, maybe before they go to bed, and then we have our time because they're going to go to bed at 9:00, just like or 8:00, whatever. You have to learn to talk a certain way to different people. And I'm not saying don't be your genuine self either.
Yeah.
Like you still need to be your genuine self because people can see right through that bullshit. Like there's no way to hide that. So be yourself, but learn how to communicate clearly and in a way that people can relate to.
Yes.
And use your ears. You got two ears and one mouth. So use your ears more than your mouth sometimes, So that's what I would say. Definitely do that. But just being exposed to that many things is gonna expedite your process and put you leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else.
I apologize for my co-host. He gets his boob in the mud and then it
My what?
your boob in the mud. Your mind in the gutter.
Never heard that. I'm just thinking about you got 2 ears in one mouth, and I just think Joe Biden thinks about his 2 nostrils, sniffing everything. Anyways. We edit that out. That sucked. Anyways, I just a little tangent. Train of thought.
So either way, like, and then at that point, the opportunity is gonna be out there before you know it. It'll end up landing in your lap. And I'm not saying don't keep aspiring to find something because it's not just gonna fall in your lap. You do need to continue to act on it and see it happening and coming to fruition. But the opportunity will come to you.
I love it. That's awesome.
But one more thing too.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but the biggest thing that kind of irks me right now with guiding and outfitting and the ease of starting a quote unquote guide service with just 10 pictures on Facebook and a Facebook page is, you don't really have the experience to be, which as a consumer, if you're willing to pay money and travel across the country to somebody, do your homework. but you're not really, excuse me, I'm sorry. You're not really in the position to be providing that service yet. So I typically say, like, and like I did, start working with people that already do it and see how they do it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take their customers, don't take their ground. But see how they do it. And then if it doesn't work out, to continue to grow and expand with them, go and do something different in a different area and build your clientele that way after you've learned how to do it right.
Well, how do you know you're to that point yet? Because, like, there's a lot of guys that can go out and say, maybe they're going to hunt a few times a week and they're going to get on birds almost every time, but they're going to kill like 4 birds. And, other times they're going to get out and they'll tag out, and how do you know you're at that point where it's like, hey, you probably had times where you've gone out and it's just like the birds just did not do what you thought they were going to do that day.
Nah, never been skunked once in my life.
Right.
No, so it's like, boy. That's why they pay you the big bucks.
But how many times did you go out in the very beginning and like you got guys out there that are paying you and like, the birds just did not perform for you. And you're just like, what do you do in that scenario?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's like you kind of just climb up the mountain, and once you get to the point where you're like, hey, you've done it enough times, you've seen it enough times that you recognize there's going to be days like that. It doesn't matter how good you are, you've seen it happen before. That's one thing, but you've got to put the time in. I mean, there's not like a set, do it for 3 years or 5 years or go get a bachelor's degree in guiding. Like, it's just not a thing. Right. So everybody's timeline is going to be a little bit different, but if you fill your entire calendar with something customer service related and guiding related as much as you can, it might take you 2 years, it might take you 5 years. But my point is it's just not going to happen overnight. Like, you're not just going to wake up one day and all of a sudden have a successful outfitting service. Like, you need to put a lot of effort into learning. So, but you just don't want to sell. You don't want to sell anybody short. So yeah. I guess if you're to the point where you feel like you're doing people right, you're being fair with everybody, then do it.
I feel like word of mouth and referrals is huge too. Mm-hmm. It's like once you build enough, people will come to you.
Sure. Well, and I, just looking at my spring turkey books upcoming and my fall waterfowl season that's upcoming with bookings and stuff, it's everybody that's either hunted with me or it's to the point where somebody that hunted with me referred them to me, right? That's how we essentially live now. Like, sure, we do other advertising to reach new people, but I'm not reliant on that only. And the word of mouth advertising is awesome. I mean, you live for that, right? Like, that's ultimately the reason that you continue to push on. Like,
referral business is the ultimate business.
Yeah. Because too, like, generally, you're going to like the people that you already hunted with, they're going to have likable people that it ends up being their friends or family. I mean, some people don't like their family, but but typically you're going to like your friends or like people that you're referring places. So it's like you end up with very like-minded people,
which compounds, which is awesome.
Exactly.
What's that I hear? Is it our favorite segment of the show coming up?
Gear.
We are big gearheads. So we got to find out right now how much of a gearhead Conner Gough is.
Uh-oh.
Is Conner Gough a gearhead?
I saw the truck he rolled up in. He's a gearhead.
He's a gear man, I think. So what we'll do for you, because I know you're both a whitetail guy and a waterfowl guy, so we're going to break your gear category into both. So let's start with waterfowl.
Equipment gear.
Yes.
Hit me.
Okay. So, weapon aside, and I don't know how to spin this, because we can either spin it on a personal level.
We could
let's do
I don't
know what it is.
Personal for deer hunting, and then guiding.
Okay.
Do a guide
okay.
gear.
So from a guide level, you're going to take, no matter what it is, whether it's goose or duck, weapon aside, what are 5 essential pieces of gear that you take into the field with you every single time that you have to have?
Oh, man. First and foremost, I mean, the lanyard's I'm not going to specify every single thing counted as 5, but I mean, lanyard's going to be huge, right?
With all your calls.
Different calls, yeah.
Should have brought them down. You got your lanyard in your truck?
They're not even in the truck. I just cleaned my truck out today.
Oh.
Isn't that the best feeling in the world? Just having like
it was like
clean...
somewhat, it was like, yeah, like to me, I got to relive like that last bit of Oklahoma dust and dirt and everything, right? Like all those miles on back roads
All
over
the
that
mud.
many months. Yeah, like it was just like this. There's like an aura about it as I'm like cleaning. Like I'm like, man, like you miss it, right? Like for me, it's always like hauling just tail flying down a dirt road with the sun setting behind you. I look in my mirror, there's just giant dust cloud behind me, you know, with this pink sky and ducks and geese just everywhere. You're like you just can't get that anywhere else, right? Like, sorry to get all emotional on you guys. I'm tearing up over here. But
That's how we are about big bucks.
yeah, man. So that's always something that definitely touches me right in the feels there. But lanyard for sure. Every day, I do carry everything like in a little Yeti loadout lid. I'm not going to count that towards my 5. That's my organization.
Is the Yeti loadout like the hard case?
No, I use like the bucket, the Yeti bucket,
Okay,
and like
yep.
the little tray.
Yep.
So like I sit on a bucket a lot of days, and I just have that in there. My calls sit in that. My wild ear hearing protection. I'm gonna use that as one of the 5. That is essential. If you can't hear what's going on, not only hear birds potentially, but if people can't communicate with you in the blind, right? Like you're in there shooting, and all of a sudden your ears like. Yeah. Just that annoying noise, and there's a safety concern or something comes up and you missed it, man, major problem. So to be able to have that and protect the hearing that you do have, huge. Always carry a first aid kit, mandatory, and a tourniquet. Not a Chinese tourniquet, a cat tourniquet, the good ones, because there's bad ones out there that do not hold.
Do not buy tourniquets off Amazon.
Yeah, nope. There are fake cat tourniquets. You need to get the real ones. So always carry a first aid kit. A couple other things. There's just so much.
These are essential. So right now, what I'm hearing is we have the lanyard.
Yep.
We have
hearing protection,
the loadout
first
bucket,
aid kit.
first aid kit.
So that's 4.
That's 4.
That's my last thing. Ooh. So like I said, I don't carry shotgun. If I was going to take a shotgun,
I'll give you a bonus if you want.
Sure.
We'll give you 6.
6. Ooh.
6 for the big guy. Shotguns don't count. This is just essential gear that's like when you show up, you always have these with you.
Always have my toe tags. So
toe tag.
Yep. So I have another bag that all my tagging information is in. Like I said, I'm just trying to prioritize. There's a lot of stuff, but so for federal migratory birds, you actually have to put a physical tag to identify your possession limit.
Whoa.
So
I didn't know
right
that.
now,
That's interesting.
When I like made a hint earlier that the feds are always watching your stuff, that's because they actually are. They're trying to really take down a lot of outfitters for party hunting, it's called. So essentially the way that we hunt every day, depending on which game warden, there's a lot of gray area around it, or federal agent or whatever it may be, they could technically come in and cut the law however which way they want it. You're not supposed to be all just shooting into a volley, because it's hard to decipher, like, what birds did you shoot? What birds did you shoot? What birds did I shoot? What birds did you shoot? So anytime you actually get checked by a game warden, Canada geese is one thing, right? Like typically, like Michigan, you can shoot 5 Canada geese. They're all the same species. Males and females all look the same. There's not a different bag limit for males and females. Now, you start talking different duck species, in Michigan, you can only shoot 4 mallards, 2 of which can be a hen. You can only shoot 3 wood ducks, yada, 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 so on and so forth. Well, now all of a sudden, if you have 3 hen mallards in your pile, but you shot one of them, but you got 3 in your pile, technically you're over limit.
Whoa.
So, and here's the deal, like they actually go in and infiltrate by booking hunts with outfitters undercover.
No way.
Not one time, but for years, and build rapport with these people, right?
No
Essentially
way.
Kind of setting you up for failure to see how you operate. Now,
if you're doing freaking tax dollars are going towards,
if you're doing
entrapment,
right? But if you're doing everything right, if you're doing everything right and by the book, you have nothing to worry about, right? So that's just where.
But how do you even verify that? If you've got 6 guys that you're hunting with, and then you've got some that are coming in, they're cupped up, and you say kill them, and it's just pop, 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 and you drop 5 of them, and the dog brings them in. How do you verify who shot what? There's no way.
When you're picking up birds a lot of days, is who shot what or this or that, and you're putting them in separate piles behind each person in the blind, right? Like it's not just one big culmination of pile of birds, so that if you get checked
It's organized.
or when, all you have to do is, as the hunter or customer or whatever, my birds are right behind me right here in my own pile. You're never over limit, because now once you get to that point where you're getting close to sniffing a limit, and Oklahoma especially, say you shoot 8 Canada geese, that's a lot of dead geese behind you. Well, you got more than 8 behind you and you're still shooting more. Technically, you're now over limit, right? Because you had 8 behind you and you just shot 2 or 3 more in this volley.
Wow. So
You
that's something
should've-
that you really have to stay on top of
Yes,
as far as the
yes.
guide goes,
So-
of making sure you're organized.
Yes. So that's why, like I said, my bag of toe tags, pens, zip ties that are all in there that I then, secure somebody's limit together with and label, so that here's another thing, a lot of times in these places where, the client isn't actually cleaning their bird, client leaves the field. Now it's me and one other person as the guide with 200 geese.
And then Mr. Green Pants shows
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a good day, boys. Yeah. We did some shooting. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
But how, the game warden doesn't care that there was just 15 or 20 more dudes that just left,
Yeah.
so
He cares. That's where you got to
Yep.
be.
So it has your name, your address, your license number, and then you actually sign with, you check off on the list what species and how many and all that stuff, so that if and when you get checked.
I had no clue that was a thing.
No, that's
So what is a federal migratory bird?
So ducks and geese, cranes, doves, woodcock.
What kind of cock?
Hard woodcock. But they migrate.
I didn't know that.
Trying to
So
think
when
what
you
else.
guys
Like
go goose
snipe,
hunting, do you-
snipe and rails and all those things. I mean, we don't really shoot them, even though there's a season for them. But
Huh. So
yeah.
the-
So and people often will associate like, oh, that's just something guides need to do. No, technically,
everybody should be doing it.
because it's a federal migratory bird, and anytime you transport it or leave your possession with somebody else, it should be tagged.
Wow. You guys heard it here first.
Toe Tags LLC,
Tag
Ryan
your-
Warden. So
That's
actually,
awesome.
there, if you're big podcasters, listen to the End of the Line podcast by Ryan Warden. It tells of why he started toe tags and the process of a multi-year sting that these feds did on Ryan Warden outfitting in Kansas and took him down.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
See, that's the kind of stuff you just don't think about.
Yep.
That's I guess if I was in a part of any kind of DNR thing, it'd be fun to be in a sting like that. Reed's thinking about toe tags. Time to start toe tagging.
Yep.
So is that 5 or do I
That
have
was
one
5.
more?
You get one. We'll give you one more.
I think the biggest thing that you should be is comfortable, right? So you want to have the right clothing on. I'm not endorsed by any company or any brand with clothing, but definitely have something that you're going to be comfortable in the elements. And
Flip flops.
yeah, that's why I'm in flip flops right now and it's winter. But either way, layer properly and be comfortable, because if you're focused on not feeling your toes or you can't feel your fingers, you're distracted from, providing the experience that you need. You're not able to interact with people. You're not able to be aware of your surroundings.
If money wasn't an object and you had to go buy a set of like clothing and gear, who would you go to and what would you buy and why?
Man, I've got a pretty good mix of a few different ones at this point. I mean, obviously, Sitka has been somewhat of a pioneer in creating, the layered system for the last decade. And now, obviously, there's been whatever First Light and QU and all these other companies that have followed suit. I think they're all good. You need to just figure out what's comfortable for you and what you think is going to be the most durable. For me, Sitka does have a good program for repairing things. It is an investment to buy it, but they take care of you on the back end of either replacing it or fixing it. I've had really good luck with Filson stuff, but I guess the
Dude,
part
Filson is next level.
Yeah,
I didn't
but
know they made
the part-
duck hunting gear.
Yeah, the part for me that like I'm a little bit torn about is like they've always marketed and their reputation has been for being American made. And for me, when you're paying that premium price for supposedly American made, it's like the last 2 or 3 years of me ordering stuff, it's been like Philippines, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, I don't know that I've gotten, I'm guilty. I'm wearing Filson stuff right now, but it's like every time I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm going to order from them again, being not American. So it's like, I'm a versatile player right now. I'm ready to make the jump if there's an American company out there that I can jump on board with, right?
Origin.
Is that a thing?
Yes.
Origin
Are you
All-American.
familiar with Jocko Willink?
I mean, I know of him, like I've seen his stuff, but
So Jocko
Not past
Willink,
Navy SEAL or something.
yes,
Yeah.
and then Pete, I forget his last name, and then Kip Folks, who
Mhm.
was also the co-founder of Under Armour. They all banded together, and they out of Maine. They started an all-American, everything down to the buttons.
Sure.
They do boots, they do jeans, they do I hate saying this word, jujitsu, gis, but they also just rolled out a line of hunting camo.
Sure.
Cam Hanes uses it, but it's everything down to the fibers are made in the U.S.
Yeah, and I'm down for that, right?
I'll text it to you.
Yeah.
It's incredible. They have their YouTube channel is awesome because it goes through the documentary story of like bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. It's just killer. So shout out Origin. At some point, I will be dumping my early season Sitka and buying Origin. They've got this really sick like Vietnam Raptor camo. It's awesome.
It's killer.
It's killer.
Yeah, and on that note, like, I think a lot of people get so wrapped up in like the newest gear or the newest camouflage pattern or whatever, and it's like people just forget that you just need to sit still. Like it's not.
Fred Bear was in
Yeah.
buffalo plaid.
Yeah, like I would dress like this and go and kill anything, and it's just like, just sit still.
Yep. Be that guy.
Yep.
All right. There's one piece of gear as far as guiding goes that every time you pull it out, it gives you the butterflies in your stomach and you get excited that you bought it. What is that one piece of gear?
I guess that old 16 gauge we were talking about before we started the podcast.
Tell us, tell the listeners about that.
Yeah. So, I'm not like a major gun guru. Like I don't have hundreds. I mean, I guess I have pretty healthy population at this point.
That you all lost in a boating accident, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was terrible. I just, oh man, I can't even think, can't even believe it. But yeah, so I go to this gun show a couple winters back and I found an old Browning Sweet 16 A5 and I knew I had to have it. Like I was going to buy it regardless before I left the show. And just by my nature, I'm always a negotiator. So I go and talk to this guy, typical old gun show. He probably works every weekend at a gun show somewhere, an older gentleman, and haggled him down a little bit. And, he wasn't going to budge at all. And so I was like, no, and you play hard to get, right? Like I wasn't going to wear it on my sleeve that I wanted this thing so badly. You act impartial to it, no big deal. And walk off, miss the sale and walk around the rest of the gun show. But I mean, internally I was there. I was like, man, I got to go back and make sure nobody else gets this thing. Yeah, I need it. I need it. Exactly. And, even just walking around, like I wasn't interactive with really anything else. Like my head was back there too. So I make my lap around the gun show. It takes me a little over an hour, 2 hours, whatever. And it was right by the door. It was one of the first tables that I saw when I got there. And, I make my way back over there and I'm like, hey, I know where you were at. I'm sure you remember where I was at. This is my last call. I'm about to leave. And he said, yep, go ahead, take it. So I picked that up and run the serial number on it. I had already run the serial number on it before I bought it. This is what made me want it even more. And for whatever reason, it doesn't give you an exact year, but it says pre-1929 for everything that I read. So early 1900s Browning A5 16 gauge. Not immaculate condition, but I didn't want an immaculate condition one. I wanted something that I could be able to hunt with. So, being able to, like I said, I don't shoot a whole lot, but when I can go out and get a nice morning in a nice tight marsh with the dog and shoot some birds over the dog, and that's one of those things, like you said, it takes you back to your roots. It's a special thing, and you really value and appreciate that time.
Oh my gosh, that is a gorgeous gun.
Yeah.
I can't believe they had that kind of technology back then. That's what blows my mind.
So I just actually had this conversation with my local gunsmith, which he's incredible. If anybody needs anything Cerakoted or gunsmith or built or anything, please let me know. This guy's best in the state that I've found. I haven't found anybody better anywhere. But even to today's specifications, mass produced shotguns anywhere, the tolerances are just so different from back in the day, and you can just feel it in the action. Like when you rack the action back or load a shell in, it's just so tight and smooth. There's zero room for error.
Crazy.
And you never have any hangups. The gun just performs flawlessly, and they will literally function flawlessly until something breaks because you just used it for that long.
Does it have all the designs too? Oh, yeah, my gosh, that's gorgeous. Is that recoil driven or gas driven?
I don't even know.
That is,
I think back in the day,
Yeah, I think it's all
mostly
recoil.
Oh.
I think. I don't think they're. I don't know.
I would assume in the 20s that it would be recoil
Yeah,
driven.
I don't think they had the gas.
Yeah.
I don't think they had the gas technology yet.
Yeah, because that came out more
Wow.
Vietnam, like that era.
I guarantee you, if we look through some of these old hunting magazines that we
Yeah,
have here,
you'd
I bet
find
you
it.
we'd find one.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Which you
Super
look
cool.
at our hunting fad anymore, like today's day and age, like Benelli Super Black Eagle 1, and then like 2-3 years later, Super Black Eagle 2, and then
Psych
2-3 years later.
1920 Browning A5.
Yeah, but you look at the Browning A5, how long did they make it for without changing really anything? I mean, decades.
Exactly. If it's
And it's
not
like-
broke, don't fix it.
Yep. And then now, I mean, granted, they've revamped it a little bit, but they still go right back and produce the Browning A5.
That's cool. I'm
Yeah.
glad you have that. That's sweet. All right, let's go to the whitetail woods in gear talk. What are the top
Yeah.
5 pieces of gear?
I don't know if I even have 5 pieces of gear. I'm a meat hunter, man. I got a bow, a chair, a ground blind, and my release rangefinder. I guess maybe there's my 5.
All right,
4,
guys,
whatever.
that's all for gear talk. The whitetail
Yeah.
woods.
I mean, I respect it. You know,
Yeah.
you know what you like.
I'm not out there, going anything crazy. I mean, I always shoot my bow and remain proficient so that I know that I can make an ethical shot. But I mean,
Attaboy.
Proud of you, Conner.
I'm not the guy I will freely admit it. I'm not out there every single day shooting hundreds of arrows. I'm going to make sure my sight's on. Maybe I can do that because I've been doing it for so long, but I think that a lot of guys, like I watch it time and time again, my bow guys that come in camp to turkey hunt or that go on a hunting trip, like they like psych themselves out so much, like they shoot so much that it's like, they just focus so much on them actually doing it that you forget that it should be muscle memory, and so it's like for me, I know, when I draw where my contact points need to be, and at that point I put the pin on it and I let it fly. Like we already discussed last time, pick the spot on the deer, don't think about anything else.
Yep.
When you get the window of opportunity, make it happen. You have got to keep it simple. So for me, I know at this point what my shot window is, and I already kind of can plot it out in my head how things are going to work out or not work out. And if it works out, I know what I need to do. And if not, I had a good time in the woods.
There you go.
Sorry, super lame. I'm like,
No,
I'm not that guy that's like out there with like the nicest
You're
stuff.
not
Like,
that
I
guy,
shoot-
pal. You're not that guy.
Yeah, I shoot like a 12 or 15-year-old PSE Stinger bow that's probably I've never even shot through
Stingers are sweet.
Conner Gough, never paper tuned it, never nothing. But
There's nothing wrong
it
with that.
works.
And that's where I feel like everybody in the outdoors realm has like their lane. Like for us, we are obsessed with archery and bow hunting, like tuning. Like we have the archery course, like sights, arrow weight, FOC, like all of that stuff. You're obsessed with birds. Like everybody has their lane, and there's absolutely nothing wrong. That's the cool thing about the hunting community is like I'm never gonna knock you because you don't have 5 pieces of gear. You kill more deer than I do.
Next time I post a deer picture, you should in the comments.
Just start a Raz.
That's right.
I love it.
Tag all your friends.
All right, if you could hunt with one celebrity, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh man, I try to not make it about people. Let me think about this. I don't know.
Okay, not celebrity. If you could hunt with somebody, dead or alive, who would it be?
Definitely my grandpa, great grandpa. I don't even have to think
Yeah.
about that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I can always respect people in the industry for making a name for themselves. But man, it is not very often that I will try and go out of my way to start talking about a person or hunt, an opportunity like that. Like I wouldn't turn my head at the opportunity if I could do it. Right. But to me, it's more than just a, event like that. Like that's for politics, I think, not necessarily time in the woods. But definitely if I could get some time out with my grandpa and or great grandpa, heritage like that.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Wouldn't even have to think twice about that.
Have a conversation of that.
Can you imagine?
that 1969 turkey?
Yeah. Can you imagine?
That's awesome.
And so to that tune, growing up, when we'd go to grandma's house, granted, we all had, high levels of gun safety and hunter safety, at all age ranges. Like it was just anticipated. Like we knew not to touch a gun unless there's an adult around, and what way you could handle it, make sure the safety's on, unloaded and whatever. But grandma always had this old wooden gun case with glass front on it so you could see through,
Can't have those anymore.
Right.
In the living room.
Yeah, it was in her basement living room, but yeah. And there was a 16 gauge pump, a side-by-side 16 gauge, an octagon barrel, Stevens 30-30 lever action with a peep sight, and then a Ruger 1022, and he had a couple like black powder revolvers. And so when we got of age, kind of like you were talking about with your family, each of us grandkids got to take one of grandpa's old guns. And so I got the 22, my brother got the 30-30, a couple cousins got the other ones. But that's kind of where you can add, more and more layers of like, what memories did they make with those, or what stories could they tell or contribute, with those tools to where, that's just, it gives you shivers down your spine,
So Lord willing, this should be a major goal of yours, is 45 years from now will be 2069. If you're still alive in 2069, it should be a goal to shoot a turkey. And then
100 years later,
then we do a news article on it, side-by-side picture of you. It would be your grandpa, right?
Great grandpa.
Great grandpa. So your great grandpa and you next to each other, 4 generations apart, or 5 Four. No.
Mom, grandma, grandpa.
Great grandpa. So 4 generations apart killing turkeys. That'd be really cool.
So they actually, another local person was like they knew, my great grandpa Ben, and especially back then, like people were very connected to each other.
Small towns, no cell phones. Everyone knew everybody.
They knew what he shot the turkey with, and they said it was a single shot 10 gauge. And so for me, like seeing all those guns in the gun case, I'm like, there was never a single shot 10 gauge there. So now I'm like, where is it? And so I had a few.
Someone in the town still has
I had a few leads in the community that like, oh, farmer, not naming any names, but so-and-so has it, or it ended up here or whatever. And obviously, I went and inquired anyways, like not to necessarily buy it, but to at least figure out where it's at. And man, it's like just dead end after dead end. So
can you imagine what a single shot 10 gauge would do to a turkey?
How about a shoulder? Boy.
Whoa. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Dude, I love it. All right. Let's go into our second to last segment. This is the lightning round. We're going to throw a bunch of just quick questions at you.
Perfect.
Answer them as fast as possible. And then we'll go into our final segment and wrap up for the night.
Let's go.
Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Would you rather shoot a Boone and Crockett typical or non-typical?
Typical for sure.
Would you rather own a 3,000 acre high fence ranch in Texas or a 500 acre farm in Michigan?
Yep. 5 acre farm, 500 acre. Not big on the high fence.
Mauled by a bear or bit by a rattlesnake?
Take the bear, because I think I could put up a heck of a fight with a bear, not going to lie.
Would you rather be attacked by a moose or a boar?
Ooh, probably a boar.
All expense Wyoming elk hunt or Canadian moose hunt?
Moose for sure.
Favorite outdoor brand?
Great Lakes Guided Outdoors.
Attaboy. Favorite go-to snack in the field?
Popcorners. The kettle
those
corn.
are so good.
Yeah, dog.
Not good for deer hunting. Great for bird hunting.
Little crunchy, yeah. loud bag.
You have a bounty on your head. Would you rather be hunted by Ted Nugent or Fred Bear?
I feel like Fred Bear would kill me more ethically.
You heard it, Uncle Ted.
I love that one. Would you rather step on a bear trap or fall from a tree stand?
Bear trap.
Oh my gosh. Brutal. All right. We got 2 left. I'm going to throw one more in there just for you because you're a bird guy.
And special.
Yeah, special. Would you rather go on an all expense paid grizzly bear hunt in Alaska or complete the Turkey Grand Slam?
Probably the bear hunt for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
I love it. It just shows how much you love guiding people.
Yeah, I got a big big like unfinished list now with predators, so I think that kind of falls into that. Like eventually I'd like to do the big cats, and I think bears would be cool.
We got them here in the Lower Peninsula. Hopefully soon we'll have a season.
Yeah, you're not lying there. They're nasty critters.
Look in the camera and tell our local DNR officer that.
Yeah, there's not any here.
They're not here.
You have any clown makeup in the pod bunker?
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right.
I will throw one more in there. What is like your coveted bird that you want to shoot as far as waterfowl goes?
That we could mount right in that corner.
Well, I will say like one that a lot of guys guys are after is a king eider. I was fortunate enough to do that in Alaska, so that's a big one.
Did you mount it?
Oh yeah.
Let's go.
Man, what would be next? I don't know that I don't ever think about things for me to go travel. Like I'm so happy doing it with people. Like I just go back to goose hunting. I don't have another one that I really want to do.
Fine.
Like
the only reason I ask is I've been watching some common goldeneye behind one of the places I've been staying lately, and it's like I've never seen them before.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Awesome.
I love listening to them fly too. The noise their wings make. It's really cool.
I haven't heard it.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
You have to kill a goose. All you have is jumper cables, vice grips, paracord, and a sand wedge. How do you do it?
Nothing to create electricity with the jumper cables.
Unfortunately not. Jumper cables, vice grips, paracord, and a sand wedge.
I feel like I could take a sand wedge and just walk a golf course and find a way to find one dumb goose to crack over the head. That wouldn't be too big a deal.
That is true. I've killed 2 geese in my life. One was with a bow, and then the other was with a Titleist 3 ProView 1. So it is possible.
All those feds are listening. You just got a waterfowl harassment ticket.
Hey, it's not my fault that I hit an accidental worm burner straight to the dome. It's not like
breakfast ball.
Yeah. I'll give you the quick story. So there's this golf weekend that there's a group of like 15, 20 guys go on. That Reed knows some of them, but we go, it's like a destination. We rent a huge Airbnb. We play 5 times in the weekend, and it's a lot of golf. So I'm on this hole, and I've got my 3-wood out, and I'm like 270 yards out, and I'm going to go for the green, and there's just a bunch of geese in the fairway. I'm like, how wouldn't it be funny if I accidentally killed one of these geese? And I get up, and I hit it really.
Premeditated.
And I kid you not, like I took a great swing, but I just hit it a little thin, and it was just about a foot off the ground at, who knows, 180 miles an hour.
Going mock Jesus.
Straight to the neck. And this thing just crumpled. But the problem was, it was still alive. I broke its neck. And so it's trying to stand, like picture. It was so sad to watch, because these guys with me were like they don't know, it was horrified. They don't know what to do. This goose like tries to stand up, and its head and neck is like a wet noodle. So it'd be like, and it flopped over, and I'm like, frick. Like, this goose is not going to make it. Like, he's going to suffer. And so I go in my golf bag, and I had a very large knife in my golf bag, and I just slit its throat. And yeah, it was unfortunate. The guys
had to do the Lord's work.
Yeah, the guys in my had they not already been scarred enough from me just killing it, I probably would have breasted it out and taken it back respectively. But we had like 12 holes to go. Would have been a little scuzzy when we got it back. But yeah, there's 3 other guys that have some PTSD from that, and every year we go back, I'm known as Goose Man.
Oh boy.
So that was my...
Never going to live it down.
That was my second goose kill. All right, final segment of the show we call What the Fart. So this is the fart dictionary. So the rules are as follows. You open the fart dictionary, and the first fart that your eyes glance upon is the Conner Gough fart. You get to read it for the listeners and then sign your name by it. And it will forever in ink be the Conner Gough fart.
Are we ready?
We are ready.
The lagoon fart. Any fart released while watching a Gilligan's Island rerun.
That's not where I thought I was going to go.
No.
Me either, especially with somebody that's got as many digestive problems as I do. Wow,
That was kind of
Something like that.
anticlimactic. It's
Sorry,
okay.
guys.
No, that's all
I feel
right.
let down.
We'll have to get you back for another one. All right. So while you're doing that, tell everybody again where they can find you, where they can book with you, where they can keep in touch, all of the above.
Definitely most reachable if you text or call me. My phone number is 989-387-0952. And seriously, call me anytime. If I don't get back to you right away, text me again. Sometimes stuff is going on.
That's for the ladies as well.
I mean, I'm definitely not gay.
Ladies.
Yep, text or call me anytime. And then social media, personal one, Instagram, Michigan_Duckman. And then obviously all the business stuff, Great Lakes Guided Outdoors. Super easy to find.
I freaking love it. Dude, thank you for taking the time to come all the way out here. I know you had to drive. So it's good to, I'm glad we were able to get this person-to-person connection. Because when we did the Zoom call, like to a certain extent, like video is very helpful in our day and age because you're able to connect with people around the globe. But there is, like we talked about, there's nothing better than in person interaction. So this was huge.
Yeah,
we had a blast.
I appreciate the invite. It's awesome to be here with you guys and experience this and share the stories and conversation. So
when you're back in town, zipping through. When we got the archery course set up, we'll have
Bring
you
the
back.
stinger.
Yep,
Absolutely.
exactly. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in again tonight. As always, the show grows organically. So if you learned something, had a good time, took away something out of it, just make sure to share the show with a friend or a family member or somebody. We are at atasso.outfitters on Instagram. In our bio is the link tree that'll get you to our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, website where all the merch is at. Merch check. We've got the Buckman sweatshirts and hoodies. We also have Duckman, which we'll get you one of those.
Ooh,
for Michigan Duckman.
let's go.
Everything is there. As always, we are now recording these, so the full-length videos are on YouTube. So in that link tree there, get you over to the YouTube channel so you can watch those if you like consuming your podcasts on a video format. We drop episodes every Tuesday. Thanks again for tuning in. We will catch you guys on the next episode. Have a great evening.
Dude, you know about it.
Closed us out.
It's all about the do-to-dos in the opening.
Do-to-dos. What are we going to do when we have to change the intro to something like better?
I'm just going to do it at any point.
I like it.
We'll have like our own song. And then there'll
Canceled.
Do-do.
be...